Are you ready for a spicy adventure? Let's talk cinnamon. It's a cool spice that most of us sprinkle on our oatmeal, toast, and apple pies. But did you know that some sneaky sellers out there are trying to sell us fake cinnamon? So, how can you spot the imposter? Well, the real deal is called Siouxland cinnamon, while the fake stuff is usually cassia cinnamon. One way to tell is by looking at the cinnamon sticks themselves. Real cinnamon is lighter in color and has a thinner, more delicate bark. The fake stuff, on the other hand, is darker and thicker. But don't worry, you don't have to be a cinnamon connoisseur to enjoy the real deal. Just make sure to read the label and look for Siouxland cinnamon. Your taste buds will thank you. Is white chocolate real or just an imposter? Well, it's time to settle this sweet debate once and for all. Some people say it's not even chocolate because it doesn't contain cocoa solids. But let's not judge a book by its cover or chocolate by its color, right? Technically, white chocolate is made from cocoa butter, milk, and sugar, which makes it a distant cousin to the darker cocoa solid packed chocolate varieties. But hey, if you ask me, family is family, even if they don't look or taste the same. And don't let anyone tell you white chocolate isn't delicious, because it absolutely is. Its smooth, creamy texture and sweet, buttery flavor make it a delightful treat on its own, or in baked goods like cookies and cakes. So, whether you consider white chocolate to be real chocolate or not, let's just agree that it's a yummy indulgence that we can all enjoy. Are French fries truly French? Hold on to your potatoes because it turns out that the origins of this snack are a bit more complicated than you might think. While it's true that French cuisine has given us some of the world's most delicious dishes, including escargot and coq au vin, the origins of French fries are actually traced back to Belgium. That's right, our crispy little friends were first cooked up in the land of waffles and chocolate. But here's where things get even more interesting. The reason they're called French fries is actually because of the way they're prepared, not because of their country of origin. You see, the term French in this context refers to the technique of slicing the potatoes into long, thin strips known as julienne cut. This technique was popularized in France in the 18th century, which is how the name French fries came to be. Want to add some egg rolls to this order? I mean, sure, they're delicious and all, but what's with all the fuss around this dish? First of all, let's talk about the egg part. Despite their name, egg rolls don't contain any eggs. Instead, the egg part comes from the thin, crepe-like wrapper that's made with eggs. It's like a little egg blanket that keeps all the tasty ingredients snuggled up inside. But what about the filling, you ask? Well, that's where things get interesting. Egg rolls can be filled with just about anything your heart desires. Veggies, meat, seafood, you name it. Some people even like to throw in a little cheese or rice for good measure. Now, here's where it gets a little weird. There's a bit of a debate in the egg roll world about whether they should be fried or baked. I say go for the fried version. There's just something about that crispy golden brown shell that can't be beaten. You might need to sit down for this one. Strawberries aren't berries, but bananas are. Mind blown yet? Here's the deal. A berry is defined as a fleshy fruit produced from a single type of cell. And guess what? Bananas fit the bill perfectly. They might not be as juicy as a watermelon or as tart as a raspberry, but they're berries. We might call them koala bears, but we couldn't be more wrong. Koalas aren't bears. These cute and cuddly critters are marsupials, which means they carry their little ones in a pouch. And while they may look a little bit like teddy bears, they aren't related to them. But hey, we can't blame people for thinking koalas are bears. After all, they do have that fluffy fur and round ears that make them look like they're ready for a hug. But koalas are their own unique species. They have all these amazing features that make them special, like their eucalyptus diet and their ability to sleep for up to 22 hours a day. Seriously, how do they do that? In case you didn't know the history of the Boston cream pie, you're in for a surprise. First off, let's just get one thing straight. Boston cream pie is not a pie. I know, it's in the name, but trust me on this one. It's a delicious cake filled with creamy custard and topped with a luscious chocolate glaze. Now, you might be thinking, why is it called a Boston cream pie then? Well, legend has it that it was invented by a chef at the Parker House Hotel in Boston way back in 1856. The chef, who apparently had a sense of humor, decided to call it a pie just to mess with people. And, well, the name just stuck. But let's not forget about the real star of this dessert, the custard filling. Smooth, creamy, and just the right amount of sweetness. It's what makes this cake stand out. And that chocolate glaze on top, it's like the icing on the cake. Literally. Is a peanut a nut? It sounds like a silly question, but you'd be surprised how many people get confused about this. So let's clear it up once and for all. Peanuts are legumes. That's right, they're in the same family as beans and lentils. But don't worry, we won't hold it against them. After all, they're still delicious and nutritious snacks. But here's where it gets really interesting. Even though peanuts aren't technically nuts, they can still cause nut allergies. That's because they contain similar proteins to tree nuts, like almonds and walnuts. So if you have a nut allergy, you'll want to be careful around peanuts too. Have you ever found yourself using the term tinfoil to refer to aluminum foil? You're not alone. A lot of people use the two interchangeably. But why is that? Years ago, aluminum foil was made of tin. Back in the late 1800s, before aluminum was cheap and abundant, people used tinfoil to wrap up their food and keep it fresh. But when aluminum foil came along, it quickly became the more popular choice because it was cheaper and easier to produce. So how come we still call it tinfoil? Some think it's because aluminum foil was first marketed as tinfoil and the name just stuck with most people. Others think it's because the two materials have similar properties, so people started using the two terms interchangeably. But whatever the reason, one thing is for sure. Tinfoil just sounds cooler than aluminum foil. You might be surprised to know that your trusty Pyrex dishes aren't Pyrex at all. Now, don't get me wrong, the knockoff still gets the job done, but it's just not the same. Be sure to check the label on your glassware before you go around thinking you're buying good stuff. Here's a cheat sheet to help you figure out what kind of container you have in your cupboard. If you see Pyrex with a lowercase p on a dish, that means it's not safe for the oven or microwave. It's most likely made of soda lime glass. Stick to using these containers for food storage. On the other hand, if you see Pyrex in all caps, you're in luck. This cookware is made of a special type of glass and can be heated in the oven or microwave. Just don't pop it under the broiler. Things could get messy. And if you're taking your Pyrex from the fridge to the oven, be sure to let it sit at room temperature for 30 minutes to avoid any glass fractures.
So, Alexander the Great, one of the most famous figures in ancient history, was apparently a big fan of one summer treat beloved by many to this day. Marco Polo, the Italian explorer and writer, is said to have brought back from Asia a recipe resembling sorbet, a frozen dessert made by mixing sugar-sweetened water with different types of flavoring. This dessert, which was later named cream ice, was a frequent treat at the court of Charles I of England in the 17th century. In France, it was Catherine de' Medici who introduced the beloved frozen dessert soon after she married Henry II. The frozen treat became available for the general public somewhere in the 1660s, when a Sicilian man blended milk, cream, butter, and eggs at Café Procope, the first known café in Paris. Thomas Jefferson himself had a preferred recipe for ice cream, which took a staggering 18 steps to complete. Ice cream has become so important in popular culture that it even has its own laws and regulations to accompany it, to make sure ice cream is always produced with its certain levels of quality. Not every frozen dessert you see out there is, in fact, ice cream. To be commercialized under this name, the Icy Delight needs to contain a minimum of 10% dairy milk fat and mustn't weigh less than 4.5 pounds per gallon. Genuine ice cream doesn't actually need to be too fluffy. In technical terms, that means it must have no more than 100% overrun. So, to get to that specific texture we've all come to know and love, the ice cream base needs to be sufficiently whipped, but only to a certain percentage. Specifically, for every gallon of ice cream base, the end products must not exceed 2 gallons after whipping. Your favorite summer dessert can yet again be broken down into many other subcategories, like reduced fat ice cream, low-fat ice cream, or non-fat ice cream, based on, what do you think, fat percentage. To have a solid idea of what you're ordering each time, it's best to look at the nutritional information of each product. One interesting type of frozen dessert is gelato. Although it literally translates to ice cream in Italian, there are differences between the two again, based on regulations on milk fat content. Gelato normally has less milk fat than ice cream officially should have, but since it has a low overrun, about 20 to 30%, the end result is still dense and rich in texture. The Italians also mention that gelato shouldn't have less than 3.5% of fat. If this doesn't seem complicated enough, the French also bring their own twist to the dessert. French ice cream, also known as frozen custard, apart from the standard ingredients, also needs to have eggs added to the mixture, with no less than 1.4% egg yolk. You've probably mislabeled many other food items, like say raspberries, as they're actually a member of the rose family, along with cherries, apricots, plums, pears, apples, peaches, or blackberries. They are added to this category based on their flowers. They bloom in 5 equal petals arranged around a central core. Bananas are considered berries, while strawberries aren't since they belong to the same rose family. We also share about 50% of our DNA with bananas, which explains why both bananas and certain attractive people can both have appeal. Another common misconception: white chocolate isn't actually chocolate, since it doesn't contain any chocolate solids. It's made only from a mixture of sugar, milk products, vanilla, lecithin, and cocoa butter. Parents all over the world don't try to convince their kids to eat broccoli for no reason. On a calorie-by-calorie basis, it turns out that broccoli has nearly as much protein in it as a steak. Now, I'm not convinced parents actually know that, but given the low fat content, broccoli has many other health benefits as opposed to meat. We now see it as the mandatory companion for fries, but at some point in time, ketchup was actually considered to have healing properties. In the 1880s, a doctor based in Ohio indicated that tomatoes could help treat digestive issues, publishing a ketchup-like formula that was later transformed into a pill. Hey, you want to have a pill with those fries? Speaking of French fries, it turns out one of the most popular side dishes in the world isn't actually French. Potatoes served this way actually originated in Belgium, but they're called that because of how they're cut, and maybe also because the name Brussels sprouts was already taken. I'm almost certain there's a jar of peanut butter somewhere in your cupboard, but I'll bet you didn't know how valuable it actually was, and I'm not talking about peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Studies have shown that Americans go through enough peanut butter to coat the floor of the Grand Canyon each year. Just to be a bit more precise here, that's about 500 million pounds. Hey, if somebody did that on YouTube, I'd watch. The pink coloring of salmon isn't always like that by default. Wild salmon is pink due to a large amount of shrimp they consume natively. Farm-raised salmon, however, is generally white, so producers need to add plant-based pigments to get that light pink hue. Carrots weren't originally orange either. The red-yellow tint we are now familiar with comes from a genetic mutation of the well-known vegetable that occurred somewhere in the 16th century. Carrots were initially white or purple. Just like you add ketchup to the side of fries, you're most likely having a dab of wasabi with every plate of sushi. Well, it's most certainly dyed horseradish. The Japanese alternative to horseradish is quite expensive. That's why 99% of restaurants in the US actually use regular horseradish instead. You may see them packed together in the supermarket, but red, green, and yellow peppers aren't actually the same vegetable. You'd need different types of seeds to be able to grow them individually, as they're each their own type of plant species. Did you know 1 in 4 hazelnuts ends up in a Nutella jar? The creamy spread is so popular that scientists are looking into ways to grow hazelnuts in labs to counteract the global shortage. That's something to think about when you ask for an extra topping. Sure, there's an expiration date on each bottle of water, but the water itself doesn't actually expire. The date mentioned there is, in fact, for the bottle itself, since the plastic can eventually leak harmful substances into the water. Ever wondered why airplane food sometimes tastes bland? The chef may not always be to blame. The altitude you're flying at has some effects on your body chemistry, making you taste things differently. You've added it to a salad at least once, but you may be surprised to know that cilantro and coriander are not in fact the same thing. Coriander is what the dried seeds are called, while the leaves and the stems go by cilantro. So now you know. For all the fruit lovers out there, scientists came up with a fruit salad tree. Yep, that's right, a tree that can grow different types of fruit at the same time. They were developed in Australia and can support up to 6 different types of fruit. There's a stone fruit variation that features peaches, plums, nectarines, apricots, and peachcots, and a citrus variation for those who prefer lemons, limes, mandarins, oranges, or even tangelos, pomelos, and grapefruits. You most likely avoid it because it can give you bad breath. But garlic is considered one of the most nutrient-dense foods out there. A single clove of garlic can contain 2% of your vitamin B6 for the whole day. Studies have shown that the chemical that gives garlic its distinctive flavor, called allicin, is good for your health. The only type of food that never spoils when stored properly is honey, or at least the only one we've discovered so far. That's because it contains a high amount of sugar and has a low moisture content. An enzyme created by bees also helps do the trick, as it can suppress any bacterial growth. Of course, if you store your honey the wrong way and expose it to additional moisture, it can go bad. But honey that is sealed and stored correctly technically has no expiration date. Now, if you're just starting out with your cooking skills, you'll be pleased to know mushrooms can't be overcooked. That's because they contain a polymer called chitin. This chemical allows them to remain tender even if you cook them from a few minutes to up to an hour. Hey, just add some butter and garlic. Nobody will ever know.
The national Jamaican fruit, ackee, has a truly unique taste. It's mild and buttery, and people who tried it say it tastes just like scrambled eggs. It's safe to eat ackee only as long as it's fully ripe. So the import of raw ackees was banned in the US almost 50 years ago. The only edible part is the white creamy flesh itself. The pink flesh looks mouthwatering, but don't fall for it, it's highly toxic. Same with the black seeds. Soursop is one more fruit banned from the US because of its toxins. It's also referred to as guanabana and can release toxic substances, leading to some very unpleasant effects if not ripe. Soursop fans, don't be sad. Chances are, you might find some frozen pulp in supermarkets. Another thing that should be 100% ripe to be safe is elderberry. Raw elderberry is rich in vitamin C, which is good for you, and cyanide, which is not that good. These berries are quite popular though. You can find them in pies, syrups, teas, jams, you name it. Fully ripe and cooked berries aren't dangerous. And nope, it's not banned. Cyanide doesn't seem that serious when it comes to food with tetrodotoxin, which is 1,200 times stronger. Pufferfish is a Japanese delicacy, and it's loaded with the substance. No person can eat this fish without consequences, but Japanese chefs have mastered their skills to perfection. To make it edible, they simply remove the poisonous parts. This delicacy is called fugu and costs about $200 per portion. You could buy a whole bunch of totally safe salmon instead. It's almost completely banned in the US. There are only a few authorized places that sell it, but you probably don't feel like having such a gastronomic adventure either way. Casu marzu literally means rotten cheese. Sorry, you can't try a bite of it in the US, so in case you can't resist the temptation, just head to the island of Sardinia, Italy. In fact, it's just sheep milk cheese with a pinch of, let's say, magic. Special flies leave their eggs right inside that cheese, and they stay there for 40 days. At the moment it's ready for consumption, this cheesy delicacy has some live maggots taking care of decomposing it. Thanks to them, the cheese has that distinctive texture and spicy flavor. It's banned in the US for sanitary reasons. Unlike soft and creamy casu marzu, the Himalayan cheese Chirpy is famous for being the world's hardest. Just like any regular product of this type, it's made from milk. What makes it different is that it stays fresh for up to 20 years. The milk is quite special too. The cows, which are actually a cross between cows and yaks, eat a variety of mountain herbs. This milk has a unique flavor thanks to those herbs. But be careful with your teeth nibbling on that hard as stone cheese. In Singapore, you'll never have cavities because of chewing gum. And nope, it's not because they take care of your teeth. The thing is, it's completely illegal there. This place is known for its cleanliness, and the country spent a fortune cleaning all the spots and banning chewing gum. It was prohibited back in 1992, and vendors had to stop the sales immediately to avoid super high fines. Walking down the supermarket aisles while traveling to different destinations, you may spot that there's no raw milk in stock. It's prohibited in many US states and other countries, including Canada, Norway, Finland, Sweden, Denmark, and Scotland, for sanitary reasons. While raw milk is a no-go for Scotland, haggis is completely fine there. Still, it's banned in the US. If you live in the States and you're under 45, chances are you've never tried haggis, since it was prohibited almost half a century ago. This Scottish pudding is made of a full range of sheep's inner parts, mixed with some oatmeal and spiced up with a bunch of minced onions. Oh, and don't forget suet and some broth. The texture is crumbly and coarse, and no surprise, the dish is quite spicy. It's usually served with mashed potatoes or mashed turnip. Cassava is a poisonous tropical root with two types. The sweet variation does contain some cyanide, but it's enough to cook it to reduce the toxic content to a non-toxic level. To get rid of all the toxins in bitter cassava, it's necessary to grate the root, then soak it, and finally cook properly to make it edible. This root is very starchy, and its flavor is really subtle. Cassava can be used just like potatoes, mashed, boiled, or fried.
What you think? How about some haggis with mashed cassava instead of potatoes on the side?
By the way, harmless potatoes aren't that safe either. It all depends on whether it's ripe or not. So-called green potatoes are full of toxins, and potato sprouts are also quite unsafe. Same with green almonds and cashews, which are full of cyanide if not ripe enough. Luckily, the nuts we get at the supermarket are well processed, which means they're completely safe. Yellow plums, or Mirabelle plums, are banned in all the 50 states of America. These fruits are completely fine, and nothing bad happens if you eat them. But you can only enjoy these plums in Lorraine, France. The importation law is a bit bizarre, and this fruit is of protected origin. If sea bass is the kind of dish you just can't live without, then the UK isn't your destination. This fish has been recently banned there because of declines in the sea bass population. The same goes with beluga caviar in the US. One of the world's most expensive foods can't be found in America because of new regulations protecting the fish. Hey, feel like a burger with freshly cooked meat, the softest bun, and loads of ketchup? Go and grab it. Unless you're a French school student, there's a law in France regulating the use of ketchup in cafeterias for students, and they're only allowed to have it with, you guessed it, French fries. Greenland shark bodies get rid of all the waste they produce, filtering it through their flesh and skin, so no wonder their flesh is toxic. Sounds like a fair reason not to eat them, but not in Iceland. Hakarl, which is processed shark meat, is first hung to dry for 3 to 5 months. In the end, you get something like ammonia-smelling fermented fish with the jelly texture that reminds you of wet bread. Some things get better with age, unless it's food. But there's one cafe in Bangkok where they've been cooking the same beef and noodle soup for 45 years. This potion-like soup has been simmering for over 4 decades. The broth has never been thrown away, and it's always kept overnight for the next day's servings. One of the secrets of the unique flavor is the massive grease rim around the pan that formed because they never washed it. Okay, now I've got the perfect excuse to do the same thing. What? The food just tastes better this way. In Cambodia, you can try a crunchy, crispy snack that tastes somewhat like a crab. It's deep fried and a bit seasoned. The main ingredient is a tarantula. This doesn't quite sound like a lunch. Okay, well, you wouldn't have guessed it if I hadn't told you. This soup that sounds like a tongue twister is definitely scrumptious. The flavor is sharp, yet delicate, and it tastes just like shrimp. Well, this traditional Laotian dish sounds really cool, until you realize it's made of ant eggs. To give it a bit of sourness, they also tend to add a few tiny ants. In Mexico, you don't throw away corn kernels that have turned black because they're rotten. You keep them as a culinary specialty called huitlacoche. Fungus all over the kernel give that earthy, woody smell. Yum, yum. Some dishes just need decoration, especially cakes and pies. In England, there's a pie called stargazy. The name speaks for itself. The sardines, accompanied by potatoes and eggs, peek out of the pie's crust and stare at the skies. And it looks a bit creepy. Sometimes it's the tails that point at the skies, though. Tea mushroom is another weird thing that they drink in Eastern Europe, together with acid milk-based drinks. It's basically some fermented black or green tea. It's made by adding a whole culture of bacteria. They're not consumed, they just ferment the drink. To sweeten tea, the sugar acts like yeast. Add juice, spice, or whatever you want to taste. Enjoy! Or at least try to. Tuna eyeballs are quite a popular delicacy in China and Japan. They need to be boiled before eating, and some seasoning is required too. If you nail it, you'll have a delicacy that tastes like squid. And it costs less than $1. I bet you're eyeing that one.
Over 100 years ago, an 11-year-old boy left his drink on a porch during a cold night. The glass was filled with powdered soda dissolved in water and a stirring stick to mix it up. 20 years later, Frank Epperson, that very forgetful boy, presented his accidental invention, the popsicle, in a California park. There's no record of the original popsicle flavor, but among the very first were cherry, the most popular one, lemon, orange, banana, watermelon, grape, and even root beer. Chocolate chip cookies are somewhat younger than popsicles, having been invented in the 1930s. Ruth Wakefield, the owner of a popular restaurant named the Toll House Inn, is considered to be the inventor of these scrumptious cookies. There are various stories behind this invention. One story claims that Ruth ran out of baker's chocolate and decided to replace it with some basic semi-sweet chocolate, expecting it would melt completely, but it didn't. Another story says some chocolate just accidentally fell into the batter. Ruth denied the accidental origin of her cookies, claiming that it was all done deliberately. There are many legends behind the creation of the potato chip. One claims they were invented in 1853 by a chef at a luxurious New York restaurant. French fries were one of the specials at this restaurant, and people seemed to love them. But there was one customer who wasn't satisfied with the quality, complaining they were too thick. When the chef, George Crumb, not crummy at all, cooked thinner French fries, the picky customer complained again. George deliberately made his next batch of fries paper thin. These fries were so thin, it was impossible to eat them with cutlery. Surprisingly, the finicky eater loved the dish. The chips recipe spread, and within a few decades, potato chips could be found in all the American grocery stores, turning from a hot dish to a fast snack. Worcestershire sauce is another product that wasn't invented deliberately. Two English chemists, John Willie Lee and William Henry Perrins, simply forgot about some barrels in the pharmacy basement for a couple of years. The first mixture they had made was totally inedible due to super strong flavor. But when they forgot some barrel of the mixture in the basement, it became fermented. When the chemists rediscovered the barrels and were curious to try it, they found that the taste had mellowed. This condiment is now used to intensify even those dishes that originally didn't have it. For example, chili con carne. Worcestershire sauce is part of the fifth flavor, umami, or savoriness, which explains its rich taste. Tofu, or bean curd, was invented centuries ago. One of its origin theories is that tofu was first created by a Chinese prince. Another theory claims that tofu appeared as a result of mixing boiled ground beans and sea salt. The salt was quite impure and probably contained calcium and magnesium. These ingredients let the bean mixture produce its curd-like consistency. One more legend says that some nigiri, a sort of evaporated sea salt, was accidentally dropped into soy milk. Today, doctors tell you to stay away from Coca-Cola, but it was surprisingly invented by John Pemberton, who had a medical degree and was a pharmacist. Pemberton's French wine coca was initially used as a remedy for severe pains, headache, and as a nerve tonic. In 1886, a prohibition law was introduced, and John had to change the recipe to remove the alcohol. One thing was left unchanged though, the cola nut that gave the drink its trademark flavor. Some legends say that John only accidentally added carbonated water to the new recipe, but in fact, he knew exactly what he wanted to do. Pemberton thought bubbles were a savory alternative to alcohol. John's Cola is definitely the Coke precursor, but today's drink differs from the original Pemberton's recipe. The sandwich was invented by accident too. Back in the 1700s, John Montagu, the 4th Earl of Sandwich, ordered his valet to make him a simple dish that could be eaten with no cutlery at all. He asked the valet to tuck some meat in between 2 loaves of bread. Lord Sandwich was particularly addicted to playing cards, and this dish let him eat without stopping the game. The cards didn't get greasy either. People started asking to bring the same as sandwich to their games, and soon the dish had its common name. The tomato ketchup we eat today is such a modified version that it actually has nothing to do with original ketchup recipe. You can trace its roots back to the 17th century, when the Chinese mixed pickled fish and spices, calling it a word that sounded a bit like ketchup, and which meant the brine of pickled fish. The English first tried this sauce about 100 years later. The British version featured mushrooms, shallots, and even walnuts. Later, the word ketchup changed its meaning and could be used for any dark-colored sauce. The first tomato ketchup had anchovies among its ingredients, which hints back to its relation to the Chinese fish sauce. Nachos aren't some ancient Mexican food. They were invented less than 100 years ago. Ignacio Anaya, nicknamed Nacho, is said to have invented this dish in the 1940s. Ignacio was a chef, and one day a regular customer asked if Ignacio could bring her and her 3 friends something different as a snack. He saw how hungry the ladies were and decided to cook something quick for them. He had to improvise using available ingredients. So, he grabbed some fried tortillas, grated loads of cheese on top of them, and heated the dish from above. To make the dish more savory, he added some jalapeno peppers on top. The very regular customer asked the name of the unusual snack. Ignacio didn't think long and said, "Nachos Special." Cheese puffs used to be a waste product in the 1930s. Edward Wilson noticed some oozing corn in one of the machines at a factory that produced flake food for animals. Those ribbons seemed interesting, so Edward decided to take them home and try to season them. He also noticed that the puffy corn hardened if it was exposed to air. The experiment turned out to be a success, so it was later developed into a world-famous snack. Now, instant noodles weren't invented by mistake, but there were several mistakes while inventing them. The main idea was to create something with a long shelf life. After several unsuccessful attempts, Momofuku Ando invented the method of preserving the noodles. They were processed in various ways, like steamed, dehydrated, fried in hot oil, and seasoned. And instant noodles used to be a luxury product, since they cost way more than the fresh noodles everyone was used to. Another product that was invented unwittingly is yogurt. It first appeared in Central Asia thousands of years ago. Some herders stored milk in a place with an abundance of bacteria without knowing it. The milk was fermented, and it resulted in a thicker texture and flavor change. One of the herders wasn't scared of that kind of dish and tried it. Nothing bad happened to him, so other people started eating it too. Today, pink lemonade has that nice color because of grape juice or added colorants. But there are two legends of how it was invented, and both feature circus workers. The first story alleges that Henry Allott, who worked in a circus, unwittingly dropped a few red cinnamon candies in the lemonade, which gave it that vibrant pink color. The other story is gross. It claims that circus worker Pete Conklin one day ran out of water for lemonade and instead used the water from the tub where one of his colleagues had washed her red stockings. The color of the pants turned the water pink. Pete added some sugar, slices of lemon, and acid. He called it strawberry lemonade. The customers liked it a lot, and his sales doubled. Yes, the people were panting for the stuff. The tarte tatin, which is a caramelized upside-down version of an apple pie, was cooked for the very first time by mistake. Two sisters, Stephanie and Carolyn Tatin, ran a hotel in the 1800s. One day, Stephanie wanted to cook a simple apple pie, but she stewed the apples in butter for too long. To conceal her mistake, she put the crust on top of the apples and put it in the oven. When she took the pie out of the oven, she noticed several burn marks. It was a bad cooking day. She didn't want the guests to notice, so she flipped the pie over and presented it as a brand new recipe. Surprisingly, the guests just loved the pie, which soon became their signature dessert. Okay, gotta go. I'm really hungry.
Bet you've never heard of corrugation. It's a system that may lie hidden in your pantry right now. Ever notice those bumps on food cans? That's exactly what they're called. And they're not just for aesthetics. First off, they make the can extra strong. That's because they can help it from cracking during the manufacturing process. Plus, these corrugations come in handy during delivery, acting like a shield to make sure there's no spillage. They're also useful in the long run because they help keep the cans in their original shape. Even when things get too hot or too cold, these corrugations let them breathe a bit. They expand and contract without breaking the metal. You may not notice any cracks on regular cans, but even the tiniest of openings can leave a way for nasty bacteria to get in contact with the food. Not to mention, they create this little air gap, so when you pop the can open, everything slides out smoothly, without you having to put in that much effort. You know what also doesn't require much effort? Hitting that subscribe button and liking this video. You know there's a plant out there that's so eager to reach the sun, you can hear it grow? Rhubarb, just before it's picked from the fields, soaks up all the sun rays it can get to make glucose. After this sunbathing session, it gets transported to dark sheds. Inside, it keeps on growing and uses the stored glucose as fuel. Nothing out of the ordinary so far, but in that dark, cozy, and warm place, rhubarb starts acting weird. That environment pushes the plant to stretch itself out in hopes it will find sun rays again. It happens so fast that you can actually hear the buds and stalks making noise as they pop open. To make sure this process goes smoothly, there's no light allowed. If light hits the rhubarb at this point, it will start photosynthesizing again and go bitter. Speaking of everyday groceries, you might have noticed that veggie bags come with some green stripes. Know that it's a sneaky optical trick. Those stripes fool our eyes into believing the veggies look way greener than they are. And it's not just veggies that get this special packaging. Oranges are often sold in red mesh bags for the same reason. Lemons? They go for yellow or green bags for that same pop of color. If your cooking skills aren't that good and you're just afraid you're going to mess up dinner yet again, stick to mushrooms. That's because they're almost impossible to overcook. Unlike other vegetables that turn into mush when overcooked, mushrooms are way more resistant. They've got this interesting substance called chitin, a molecular structure that works like an armor. So you can cook them forever. They won't burn. Donuts don't have holes in them because it's easier for you to pick them up. If you've ever tried to make them at home, you might have noticed that when you fry the dough, the outside gets done quickly, thanks to the hot oil. If you want the inside to look just as good, you have to keep it in the oil way longer, but then the outside would get too brown. Thanks to that middle hole, the heat gets to both sides equally, cooking up a flawless donut. Here's how that small piece of paper makes it into your fortune cookie. First, they bake these cookies flat, like pancakes. Then, while they're still warm and bendy, they sneak in those tiny messages. As the cookies cool down, they toughen up and keep their shape, trapping the fortune inside like a tasty time capsule. One legend has it that these Asian treats were initially intended to help people send all sorts of secret messages without causing any suspicion. Here's a little tip for whenever you're buying lunch at a fast food place. Skip the word extra when you're ordering. The moment you speak that term, you're tempting the employees to charge more. Instead, go for something like "a little more, please," when you're getting a special burrito bowl. According to a UK study, cheese is the most stolen of foods worldwide. It's estimated that around 4% of all cheese just vanishes from stores. And no, it's not mice doing the stealing, it's people. Why? Because cheese is becoming more and more valuable. The price of cheese is constantly going up, and sneaky thieves are trying to make easy money by simply taking it from the racks. It's not just cheese, though. Other interesting items on the thieving list include fresh meat, chocolate, and seafood. Ferrero, the company behind those luscious jars of Nutella, needs about 25% of the world's hazelnuts every year. So if you think about it, 1 in 4 hazelnuts ends up in a chocolatey jar. The manufacturers get the nuts from Turkey, Italy, and Chile, making sure they get them delivered from both the northern and southern hemispheres to keep things fresh. Nutella's impact on the economy is even bigger than you'd imagine. Because of this demand, the price of hazelnuts went through the roof. In 2014, a frost hit Turkey's hazelnuts, supply got halved, and prices were even higher. Now, even places like New Jersey are trying to grow those Nutella-worthy nuts. When you imagine someone trying to sneak something into space, your first thought wouldn't be a sandwich. But back in 1965, during a Gemini mission, astronaut John Young brought a corned beef sandwich on board, going against NASA rules. He hid it in his spacesuit pocket before blastoff. About 2 hours into the 5-hour trip, he went to the mission commander and offered him this unlawful treat. The commander, being a good sport, took it, and they shared a quick, savory moment. He even put the unfinished sandwich in his own spacesuit pocket to avoid crumbs making a mess of the spacecraft. Meanwhile, the official NASA-approved food was waiting patiently in a box nearby. Surely, radishes aren't your first pick when it comes to salad ingredients, but they have quite an interesting history too. These mustard, broccoli, cabbage, and cauliflower cousins have been grown and eaten for longer than you'd imagine, even before the Romans were famous in ancient Egyptian times. In fact, radishes were used as currency for the people who built the pyramids, alongside onions and garlic. You'd think the English are champions when it comes to drinking tea, but you'd be wrong. Turkey is in fact the tea capital of the world. Every Turk drinks an average of 1,300 cups of tea each year. On a regular day, they're sipping on 3 to 5 cups, but when winter hits, they can reach 10 cups a day. Locals claim tea is like a social custom for them. It's more than just a hot beverage. It's an excuse to sit down, enjoy the atmosphere, and connect with loved ones. When it comes to types, black tea is preferred. There might be a magical drink hidden in your fridge. It's tonic water, and it might be able to glow in the dark. If you're curious, test it out with some ultraviolet light. The secret behind this glow is pretty simple. Tonic water has quinine, a chemical that lights up under certain conditions. Quinine was used back in the day to treat certain health problems. The stuff was so bitter that some people started mixing it with sugar and soda water. In simple terms, Things glow because they absorb light energy, gets all excited, and then releases it as visible light. Quinine in tonic water absorbs and releases energy, making your drink look like it's from a fairy tale. There's an interesting connection between what we hear and what we taste. Scientists investigated and found that people worldwide link certain sounds with specific flavors, and they call it cross-modal correspondence. High-pitched sounds match up with sweet and sour tastes, while the lower, jarring sounds go hand in hand with bitterness. If it's staccato, think crunchy, and if it's smooth and flowing, think creamy. Some even found music that can enhance the taste of chocolate. In this study, when people listened to a high-pitched, sweet soundtrack while eating chocolate, they thought it was sweeter than when they'd heard a lower, more dissonant soundtrack.
How about eating a banana with mayo? Dipping pickles in peanut butter? These food combinations do sound pretty wild, but how do they taste? Well, give them a try, and Oreos with mustard might become your favorite dish. Okay, stay with me here. Tomatoes and peanut butter. Put several slices of tomato on a piece of bread and spread some peanut butter over the sandwich. Or just slather a thick layer of peanut butter over a slice of tomato. This taste combination is surprisingly popular with many foodies. Nutella and French fries. Salt tends to enhance flavors. That's why if you dip your French fries in Nutella, the famous hazelnut spread will taste sweeter and nuttier. Yes, the pun was intended. Another way to enjoy your French fries even more is to wash them down with chocolate milk. Banana and bacon. Salty, crispy bacon combined with sweet, carb-heavy banana makes a perfect mix. Put these ingredients on a slice of bread, add some peanut butter, voila! Your perfect sandwich is ready. Pickles and ice cream. Well, I admit this combination might not be just for everyone, but there are foodies who find this unusual mix of salty and sweet, vinegary and milky, strangely alluring. Cheddar cheese and apple pie. These days you can surprise no one by serving sliced cheese together with fresh apples. But since these products get along quite well, why don't you take it one step further? They say the idea of adding cheddar cheese to apple pies first appeared in England, and after that, it spread all over the world. French fries and honey. If you want to turn your French fries experience into something different and more exciting, honey will do the trick. Its sweet flavor will complement the fast food saltiness. No wonder some restaurants have honey among other dipping options. Banana and mayo. Nope. By no means do I encourage you to squeeze a healthy dollop of mayonnaise on a peeled banana and stuff it into your mouth. Instead, try sandwiching a sliced banana between two pieces of bread and coat it with a bit of mayo. You might be in for a pleasant surprise. Chocolate and chips. This salty-sweet combination tastes amazing. No wonder chocolate-covered chips are a thing, and many brands have already added this mix to their product lines. Burger and jam. These days you can order this combo in most restaurants, and no one will think you're a weirdo. Well, mostly no one. More and more people choose this option over the regular one with ketchup. Popcorn and milk. Some unique individuals replace breakfast cereal with popcorn. They add milk and claim that this dish tastes no worse than its more widespread and popular alternative. Care to try? White chocolate and red caviar. They say this unlikely food combo was created by a famous chef. He was amazed at how the salty caviar softened the sweetness of the white chocolate. If you're a fan of sweet salty tastes, you're going to love it. Peanut butter and pickles. Let's say you aren't too enthusiastic about dipping pickles into sturdy peanut butter. Then try combining these ingredients in a sandwich. In this case, the vinegary flavor of the pickles will dilute the stickiness of the peanut butter. Watermelon and salt. Those who have never tried this taste combination often think that salt rids watermelon of its sweetness. But the truth is quite the opposite. A pinch of salt will only enhance the flavor. Mango and chili pepper. If you're a spicy food lover, this combination might catch your fancy. You can sprinkle some hot chili pepper on a sliced mango and enjoy the burn. Peanut butter and bacon. Remember that banana and bacon combo? It's time to replace the banana with some peanut butter. Its smoothness will contrast with the crispiness of the bacon. Careful, you might get addicted fast. Ice cream and hot sauce. The most effective way to put out the fire caused by spicy food in your mouth is to drink some milk. Then why not step it up a notch? Drizzle some spicy sauce over your vanilla ice cream to please your adventurous soul. Chocolate and avocado. It's not only about adding a bit of chocolate to your avocado toast. You can also make a mouth-watering avocado and chocolate milkshake. Then the buttery texture of avocado will perfectly complement the flavor of chocolate. Burger and peanut butter. Ooh. Burgers with jam are more of a sweetmeat salty combination. But burgers with peanut butter are a salt with more salt kind of situation. But instead of spreading melted peanut butter all over your burger, you have to add it while making beef patties, and your burgers are bound to become juicier. Oreos and mustard. Those who have tried this food combo promise that the flavors go with each other amazingly well. Scratch away an Oreo cookie frosting and replace it with German mustard. You won't regret it. Peanut butter and mayo. While it's one of the most bizarre combinations you can imagine in a sandwich, it has a long history. People started to mix peanut butter, rich in proteins, and mayo, full of fats, during tough times. But later, the sandwich stuck around once people realized it was actually delicious. Pizza and honey. Hot honey can make an unexpected but undeniably awesome pizza topping. For example, it's a great way to balance the excessive amount of salt coming with, let's say, pepperoni. So, if you cook pizza at home, put some pepperoni and peppers on top of it. Then coat it with honey. You can thank me later. Olive oil and ice cream. To get a mega delicious salty sweet combo, sprinkle some olive oil and a bit of sea salt on the top of your vanilla ice cream. Really, go for it. Peanut butter and sriracha. Yet another unexpected combination of two seemingly incompatible ingredients. But in fact, the sweet aftertaste of sriracha will make the sticky peanut butter taste more interesting. And the butter, in turn, will take the edge off the sriracha's spiciness. Green apples and salsa. You might have tried mangoes or pineapples mixed with salsa sauce. But then, why should it be any different with green apples? Their slightly sour taste is perfect for spicy dishes. It does offset some heat, but at the same time, their flavor adds a strong and a bit bitter taste to the mix. Strawberries and balsamic. This is a tried-and-true Italian combination that works amazingly well. The savoriness of the vinegar makes strawberries taste sweeter. It also complements their juicy nature. Watermelon and feta. No classic Greek salad can go without feta. But this cheese can taste no worse when you combine it with fruit, watermelon in particular. The dense structure and saltiness of feta will add extra flavor to the juicy red goodness. Peanut butter, jelly, and goldfish crackers sandwich. Now, peanut butter and jam have long been a classic. But why goldfish crackers? True foodies know that this component fills in all the remaining gaps. Your sandwich gets a satisfying crunch. It becomes more savory. And the crackers are just salty enough to balance the sweetness of the jelly. Basil and strawberry. I've already mentioned the benefits of mixing strawberries with balsamic vinegar, but strawberries and basil are just as good. You can test this combination while making lemonades and other drinks. Basil and strawberry frozen yogurt taste just as delicious. Pickle brine and chicken. Cooking chicken in pickle brine helps keep the meat juicy. At the same time, this method preserves the natural flavor of poultry meat. Another benefit? You don't need to use salt in the process. The brine is already salty enough. Hummus and dried cranberries. After dipping your cracker in hummus, top it with several dried cranberries. They make a world of difference by adding a tiny bit of tang.
Is this safe to eat? We sometimes see strange dots on our potatoes and wonder if we should just throw them away. Here are 10 eat or toss facts. Did you know that every year 119 billion pounds of food is wasted only in the United States? To put it in perspective, this number means nearly 40% of all food in America is wasted. People throw away food if they don't have confidence in the ingredients. They're being cautious, and it makes sense. But what if the food is safe to eat and only looks weird? The first item on the list is beef. When it comes to meat, people naturally get extra cautious. Imagine you buy some raw beef in the store. Later on, you realize it's got some brown spots. If you toss it immediately, hear me out. This is normal. In fact, you can see brown layers also inside the beef. Bright red color equals fresh meat, huh? Not necessarily. When the meat is first cut, it's maroon. If the meat is quickly vacuum packaged, it will keep that shade. But if the meat is exposed to air for like 15 minutes, then oxygen will cause a change in the look to red. The redness can turn brown when the biochemical reaction starts. This can take a few hours. Workers at the grocery stores grind the meat several times a day to achieve that bright red color because they know consumers are cautious about maroon-looking beef. If the beef is wrapped in an oxygen-permeable plastic, it turns bright red after exposure to oxygen. As long as the meat smells and feels fresh, and if it's been stored properly, it should be safe to eat. Have you ever come across dark lines under a shrimp shell? This one has a similar story to beef. Black lines on your shrimp's flesh are related to a natural phenomenon. They gradually occur after shrimps are taken from the water. Meat is exposed to oxygen, and the blackness gets more visible over time. Here also, the pattern of the animal itself can be a factor. These black lines can be a naturally occurring discoloration on the shrimp. Think of cats. They also have different color patterns, but they're the same in terms of species. Next time, you can conduct a mini experiment in your kitchen. Put a couple of shrimp side by side and observe the mild differences in the shrimp's color patterns. Shrimp will have a distinct bad odor when it's no longer edible, so if it smells and tastes fresh, don't toss it. Should you eat moldy yogurt? That green substance on the surface doesn't look appealing at all. But if you scoop it out, you seem to have clean yogurt underneath. The short answer is toss it. The mold could be seen on the top only, but it has probably gone deep. Not to mention that it'll taste bad. Many molds are harmless, but some produce toxic substances. Green mold is a type of penicillium. Does this word sound familiar? That's the same type of mold used in the antibiotic penicillin. Don't get too excited. Eating moldy yogurt won't magically cure bacterial infections. It only spoils your dairy products. In 2013, there was an outbreak related to one line of yogurts. The company handed the products to stores as usual. After some time, they received customer complaints. They said that the yogurt looked like yogurt soup and tasted really old. Turns out that a type of fungus probably released some carbon dioxide. It made the product fizzy and bloating. Ugh. The company and another independent scientist both said that this fungus in question wasn't usually harmful to people. Yet, more than 200 people reported becoming affected by it. So, these sorts of things can still happen. You should trust your spidey sense. If you've ever been lucky enough to see some mold in a freshly opened package, reach out to the manufacturer. You'll potentially save others from facing the same scenery by notifying the company about a systemic issue and preventing potential future product waste. Plus, the company probably wants to make amends and either reimburse your sad yogurt with a happy one, or better, they'll give you coupons for free products. Why do avocados sometimes have brown dots inside? Technically, it's edible, but you might not want to eat it. Avocados are a source of many vitamins like C, E, K, and B6, as well as healthy stuff like magnesium, potassium, and more. The avocado works hard to become such a health storage. Nutrients, water, and sugars wander around this fruit. Yes, technically, avocado is classified as a fruit. Anyway, avocados have their own transport channels, like veins. These channels are normally invisible to us. Until something goes out of the ordinary, the avocado may be stored in too cold temperatures for a longer time than it should. As a result, the tissue cells might be weakened and start to deteriorate. Experts say that after the fruit is harvested, if it stays in the refrigerator for a few weeks before you buy it, vascular browning can occur. This phenomenon becomes visible after you keep the avocado at room temperature for a few days. Don't be hard on yourself, it's not because of you. So, should you eat it or toss it? You can eat the brown dotted avocados, but you may want to taste them first. They might not taste good compared to a regular one. What about the white area under the potato peel? Eat or toss? This area is also like dark bruise marks, but it's not black. If the outer layer of the potato looks normal, that odd-looking white knot is not mold. The moldy potatoes deteriorate. They'll get softer, wrinkled, or squishy. As long as the exterior of this potato appears clean and regular, there's probably no harmful microbial growth inside of it. These strikingly white areas can be shaped due to potatoes being bruised, possibly in the field during the harvesting period. To sum up, you can eat it. There's also an issue of white smears coming out when we slice potatoes. You see the marks on the cutting board? Experts say that some potatoes have a higher level of water and starch content. As a result, your cutting board gets a bit messier than usual. No need to worry about it. I'm gonna carry on with another form of potato. Not because I love every version of potato and I can eat it in all meals from breakfast to dinner, but because I want to know. What are those brown spots on potato chips? Should we eat or toss them? Consider these as minor imperfections. They don't affect the safety of the chip. They're there again because of the bruises they get or as a result of frying. Sometimes you see that your garlic is trying to make more garlic out of itself. Yep, it has sprouted. The question is it okay to eat sprouted cloves, or should you toss them? If the green sprout is in the center of the garlic clove, that's fine. Be aware that the taste of the garlic will be stronger than it usually is. It will still be perfectly okay in a cooked meal, since it'll be alongside other ingredients. The taste shouldn't be that harsh. Can we eat an apple with worms? Most people can't even stand the idea of accidentally eating an apple with a worm, but that's a cultural thing. So the answer is yes, we can eat it. After all, worms add a little protein to the fruit. These animals don't carry any harmful parasites. They make their way into the apple. The entrance point of the fruit might have an off flavor since it got sort of rotten in time. Besides the taste, the rotten part is all safe to bite. What might not be so safe is eating the fallen apples though. Those have probably been hanging out on the ground for quite some time. This period might be enough for the harmful bacteria from the soil to sneak into the apple. There were some cases where people experienced health issues by drinking unpasteurized apple juice made from dropped apples. Yeah, the ones that interact with unhealthy bacteria. Venice banned new kebab shops and other fast food outlets in an attempt to maintain the city's decorum and traditions. It happened several years ago when the authorities passed a law to limit the opening of these types of restaurants, with only artisanal ice cream shops being exempt from the ban. The city's tourism chief explained that the goal is to preserve Venice's cultural heritage and promote local products. The concern is that fast food establishments could detract from the city's unique identity and harm the environment. Venice is not the only Italian city taking action against fast food. Verona and Florence have also implemented restrictions on new kebab shops and foreign food establishments. In 2012, London restaurants were in an uproar after the ban on rare and medium-rare burgers had been announced by the Westminster City Council. They claimed it was for health reasons, but some were skeptical. One chef even said that if they stuck to these rules, they might as well kiss the burger industry goodbye. Others worry it's just the beginning, and soon we won't be able to enjoy runny eggs or steak tartare either. Raw and undercooked meat can indeed be dangerous, but many believe the authorities are overreacting. However, with previous incidents like the mad cow disease outbreak in mind, it's clear the council is just trying to be cautious. By the way, in New Zealand, you can't order your burger rare either, all because of some pesky bacteria concerns. Pufferfish is a Japanese delicacy that only the bravest dare to try. their highly poisonous internal organs, for instance, the liver, contains tetrodotoxin, which is extremely toxic. This poison can enter your body in multiple ways: through a cut on your skin, when you inhale it, and, of course, if you eat it. Normally, people can't stay alive if they eat this fish. Yet, Japanese chefs are trained to remove the poisonous parts from a delicacy with a hefty price tag named fugu. It's almost completely banned in the US. There are only a few authorized places that sell it, and in order to do so, they need to have a special license. Just so you know, it's not only pufferfish that has this poison. Most octopi and cuttlefish have it too. Casu marzu, known as rotten cheese in Italian, is unsurprisingly banned in the US. But hey, if you're feeling adventurous and want to give it a try, head to Sardinia, Italy. This cheese is made from sheep's milk and has a little twist. Special flies lay eggs in it. Ugh! Maggots have around 40 days to invade the cheese, and then it's left for 2 to 3 months with maggots in it. The live maggots in the cheese help decompose it, giving it a unique texture and spicy flavor. It may be banned in the US, but it's definitely worth a try if you're ever in Italy. You may think there's everything a person may want in the US, but then, bam! One day you wake up craving some haggis, and it turns out this tender dish is legally banned in the land of liberty. The reason behind it isn't because Americans prefer mac and cheese or burgers, but because some ingredients haggis has aren't considered to be safe in the US, namely sheep lungs. And they make 15% of this dish. In fact, there's a full range of sheep's inner parts, plus some oatmeal, a lot of minced onions, suet, and some broth. It's quite crumbly and coarse, and it's also spicy. If the description didn't make you change your mind, get ready for a transcontinental flight and see you in Edinburgh. Sadly, haggis isn't the only Scottish dish banned somewhere in the world. Black pudding and other similar dishes from around the world are banned in the US due to sanitary reasons. However, if someone tells you that people in Canada went even further and banned iron brew and Marmite, don't believe them. Canadian authorities stated otherwise several years ago. Sorry folks, but there simply ain't enough room in Sweden for both M&M's and Marabou chocolates to coexist peacefully. It's like a Wild West showdown between these colorful candies marked with the letter M. So, who won the trademark battle? Marabou chocolates, of course. They've been holding the fort since the 1950s, while M&M's only rode into town in 2009. In a twist of fate, a Swedish court laid down the law in 2016 and ruled that Mars couldn't sell M&M's with lowercase m letters on the packaging. So if you're craving some peanut M&M's in Sweden, you'll have to settle for the version with capital M's on the packaging. The World Health Organization recently gave out validation certificates to Denmark, Lithuania, Poland, Saudi Arabia, and Thailand for eliminating trans fats from their foods. Trans fats are bad for our health and pretty easy to get rid of, making it a simple yet important nutrition policy for countries to follow. WHO now has a cool new program where they give out certificates to countries that kick trans fats to the curb. Kind of like how they do for getting rid of diseases like polio and smallpox. Horse meat is banned in many states in the US, first and foremost, for ethical reasons. It's considered cruel to eat horse meat there. However, some people also think there are safety reasons to avoid this type of meat. The thing is, horse meat is not particularly good for health due to various toxins found in it. Americans sure do love their salmon. But do you know that the farm-raised salmon in the US gets its coral color from being fed a carotenoid called synthetic astaxanthin? Yikes! This chemical is actually banned from consumption in some countries, such as Australia and New Zealand. And how about milk we all drink? Unless it's specifically marked, it's treated with artificial hormones to boost milk production. The FDA says there's no difference in the milk, but countries like Canada and the European Union ban it. Who knew? Chicken in the US gets washed in chlorine to reduce the risk of spreading illnesses like salmonella. Sounds good, right? Well, the UK and Europe think differently and banned this practice due to some unsanitary farming concerns. And let's not forget about the pork industry using ractopamine to beef up their livestock. While this is common in the US, over 160 other countries have banned this drug in meat production. Quite the difference in opinion, huh? The next time you're munching on those yummy Swiss rolls, keep in mind that the food dyes yellow 5 and red 40 in them are considered problematic in Europe and have warnings for kids. You got it, they're banned in at least 2 European countries, Austria and Norway. The rest of the countries require a special label on the packaging. Many break-based products in the US, like croissant, French toast sticks, and pre-sliced breakfast use azodicarbonamide as a whitening agent. Europe says no to this chemical, but the FDA still allows it. It's like a foodie drama unfolding before our eyes. When enjoying rainbow-colored candy, consumers are not only experiencing the array of flavors, but they're also consuming food dyes such as yellow 5, yellow 6, and red 40. These dyes have been linked to negative effects, so, yet again, Europe requires special labels on the packaging because those dyes may have an adverse effect on activity and attention in kids. In countries like Norway and Austria, the dye called yellow 5 is completely banned from use. In 1996, the FDA approved Olestra as a fat substitute for use in snacks and chips in order to provide guilt-free snacking options. Despite this approval, Olestra has been associated with side effects such as abdominal cramping and loose stools, as well as inhibiting the absorption of important vitamins and nutrients. As a result, the additive has been banned in Canada and several European countries. Next time you grab snacks to eat in front of your favorite series, make sure to look out for Olestra. Trans fats such as partially hydrogenated soybean and cottonseed oils can even be found in your favorite coffee creamer. Yep, coffee's at risk too. Those have been associated with heart conditions. Even though those fats were officially prohibited in the United States in 2018, they continue to be present in the American food supply. In addition to the US, several other countries have also set a strict limit on trans fats, including Switzerland, Austria, Hungary, Iceland, Norway, and Denmark.
You've never ever eaten a single bite of a real cinnamon roll in your entire life. All your fancy Italian dinners with your friends were a scam. And get this, most likely, you've never tried a legit milkshake. Feels like your entire life is a lie, right? Don't worry, I've got you covered. I'll expose all those lies to you. Watch until the end to know how supermarkets sell you a fake Caesar salad and why the only authentic thing you've ever eaten was that seemingly packed with colorant red velvet cake. Do you like mashed peas? I don't. I still have those flashbacks to when my mom made me eat this swamp-like slurry when I was a kid. But I love peanut butter. Well, these two are related. The thing is, peanuts are actually legumes, not nuts. Why do they even call it peanut butter if it doesn't contain real nuts? And is not a dairy product to be considered butter? No one knows for sure, but I guess it's just because of the texture that resembles other nut-based spreadable pastes. The main component of the Caesar salad is probably its dressing. It has a bunch of ingredients, such as olive oil, eggs, lemon juice, Worcestershire sauce. By the way, 3 hardest things to say out there are I love you, I apologize, and Worcestershire sauce. Sorry, I got carried away. I was just saying that supermarket Caesar salad is a scam, since lots of stores and even restaurants throw in mayo and other unexpected ingredients. Source? Trust me, bro. Farm-raised salmon usually looks as white as the Twilight protagonist, but don't sparkle. It's the skin of the salmon, Bella. I'm a salmon. Ahem. Sorry, let's carry on. Well, people normally trust neither vampires nor pale salmon. To give the trustworthy reddish-pink look to those fish, sneaky fish farmers add pigmenting compounds to salmon feed, which helps mimic the color of wild salmon. In the wild, salmon get that iconic hue from shrimp and algae, but their farm-raised peers sometimes get a boost from carotenoids added to their feed. Many fancy pestos at supermarkets are labeled alla genovese to show they come from Genoa and have old-school Italian nonna recipes. But sometimes, manufacturers may throw in a bit of extra stuff to make their pesto thicker. Okay, I may understand the extra sugar in this sauce, but bamboo fibers? I mean, I love pandas, but I'm not a panda. Some time ago, American journalists hit up 25 sushi spots in NYC and LA to see if we were really getting the sushi we paid for. They visited those big shot celeb hangouts and local joints and collected samples. Ordered sushi and then sent them off to a lab for some DNA testing. If that was a TV show, the results would sound like, "You are not the father." The thing is, 68% of the samples were not what they claimed to be. It was often a cheaper fish. In NYC, white tuna usually turned out to be escolar, also known as the X-lax fish, because instead of a nice aftertaste in your mouth, it can create a number 2 emergency. This fish is banned in Japan and Italy, but totally legal in the US. Things are even worse with wasabi. 95% of wasabi served in sushi restaurants is a knockoff. Yep, instead of fancy traditional Japanese stuff, you've been fed a cheap mix of horseradish, mustard flour, cornstarch, and green food coloring. Restaurants swear it's all about volatile compounds the real wasabi paste has that breaks down within minutes, but I have a bad feeling they just want to optimize costs as much as they can. If the apples you buy in supermarkets were kids, at the age they're sold, they'd be able to walk. While some produce like spinach is super fresh, apples often spend a long time in cold storage before hitting the shelves. In the US, apples are usually harvested between August and September. They're picked slightly unripe, treated with chemicals, waxed, boxed, and then stored in cold warehouses for up to 12 months. In the US, the average supermarket apple is 14 months old, while in other countries, let's say Australia, they're slightly younger and are only around 10 months old. Red velvet cake color is all about chemistry. Cocoa powder has an antioxidant known as anthocyanin, which is sensitive to pH levels. It can react to both acids and bases. Buttermilk and vinegar, which are also part of the recipe, are acidic, so due to this simple reaction, the whole mixture gets a dark red hue. The resulting cake has more of a reddish-brown shade though, rather than bright red. The only problem is that it's difficult to replicate the natural reddish-brown color since most brands use an alkalizing agent to neutralize acidity during processing. And to get that color, cocoa powder must be raw. You see what I'm driving at, right? Those cakes you grab at your favorite coffee shop are packed with artificial food coloring. Stop calling these orange and yellow prepackaged slices cheese. Not only is it an insult to camembert, cheddar, and other cheese varieties, but it's also incorrect in terms of legal regulations. Even the FDA refuses to classify this product as real cheese. It contains less than 50% of actual cheese, with the remaining ingredients being fillers and additives. I guess those slices deserve their cheese product name. Many commercial blueberry products don't actually have any blueberries in them. Instead, they're full of sugar, corn syrup, and artificial flavors. Even big brands like Kellogg's and General Mills were guilty of that. But still, there are many real deals. Just make sure to check the ingredients list for the real blueberries, and remember, the best ingredient that can be put in a blueberry pie is your teeth. Let's normalize purple carrots, shall we? They used to be the norm. It wasn't until Dutch growers started some vegetable experiments that we ended up with the sweet orange carrots we all know today. The Dutch were on a mission to create a carrot that showcased their national colors, like orange for the House of Orange. Their carrot breeding efforts paid off, and soon the orange carrot was all the rage, pushing aside purple and yellow varieties. That canned pumpkin you grab every year isn't really pumpkin, or at least not always. Most of the time what you're getting is actually squash. The FDA doesn't care to differentiate between pumpkin and squash on food labels, so companies go for the tastier and more compact squash instead. The US has rules for grading and processing milk products to keep them safe to drink and prevent sickness. States can change the rules a bit, so you might see raw milk for sale in California, but never in Florida or Illinois. So, your favorite milkshake might not actually be a legal milkshake if it has too much or too little milk fat. Here's why McDonald's sells not milkshakes, but just shakes, as they're made of a soft-serve ice cream mix. There's this shocking truth about Dairy Queen. Despite serving the iconic Blizzard, they technically don't sell ice cream. The FDA's regulations require a certain amount of milk fat for a product to be classified as ice cream. Dairy Queen's soft serve falls short, only containing 5% butterfat, so they embrace the term soft serve for its frozen treats. Your cinnamon rolls are a lie. They don't have any real cinnamon in them. Many commercial cinnamon rolls use a less expensive variety of cinnamon called cassia, which is closely related to true cinnamon species. Portobello mushrooms are not a unique type of mushroom, but rather mature cremini mushrooms that have been allowed to grow bigger in size. So here, we've only got the age difference. The belief that churros are Mexican is yet another food misconception. The origin of churros is still a mystery, with varying claims as to who invented the popular pastry. While some believe it was Spanish shepherds, Portuguese sailors, or Chinese individuals, there is no definitive proof to confirm any group as the original inventors. Some truffle oils out there actually have real truffles in them, but most of those you see in stores use this synthetic stuff with a complicated name instead. It basically mimics the taste and smell of real truffles, so companies can make truffle oil without breaking the bank.
Chewing chili peppers speeds up your body's metabolism, which helps you shed some of that extra weight. And chomping down on a chili is a great way of clearing up your sinuses. If you want to keep it healthy, eat actual chilies and stay away from those sauces with a skull and crossbones on the label. Beans are packed with plant-based proteins that make you feel full, so you'll actually eat fewer calories over the course of the day. Beans are so important, there's even a National Bean Day, January 6th. Peas have nutrients in them that reduce bloating. Pop a tin of peas into your next pasta sauce. Chickpeas aren't peas or chicks, but they are delicious. About 100 years ago, roasted chickpeas were used as a coffee substitute. Ooh. But eating a handful of chickpeas will do wonders for your immune system, and they help you lose weight. With more fiber than quinoa and more potassium than a banana, pumpkins are a nutritional powerhouse. The pumpkin capital of the world is Morton, Illinois. When you're in the mood for pumpkin, don't forget about the seeds. A pile of pumpkin seeds has as much protein in it as beef jerky. Plus, they have fiber and zinc. Tuna is full of lean protein and omega-3. It's good for your eyes, your brain, your heart, and getting rid of that belly fat. Salmon is also great for weight loss. It's packed with vitamin D and B6, the good kind of fat, and a large number of minerals. D and B6 are supposed to help reduce stress and increase happiness. See? Pickles are full of water, vinegar, and fiber and have almost no calories. Not only that, but acidic foods like vinegar also help your body burn carbs more efficiently. Pickles are ancient, and they've always been used for health. The Egyptian queen Cleopatra swore they made her look beautiful. Who would have thought that potatoes would be the answer to reducing belly fat? They're filled with vitamins, minerals, fiber, and a large dose of potassium. And they're packed with energy and are easily digestible. Just, don't eat French fries for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There's probably not that much potato in French fries anyways. Greek yogurt has probiotics in it that boost immunity and help your gut function properly. And it stops you from bloating. Plain unsweetened is the best kind. Hey, you don't want to eat a bunch of sugar when you're trying to lose weight. If you still got some yogurt left over after lunch, try treating yourself to a yogurt facial. Just don't forget to wipe it off. You might see kefir in some Mediterranean restaurants. It's also now in many grocery stores. It's basically another kind of yogurt, except it's super creamy and perfect for smoothies. Sauerkraut is low in calories, high in fiber, and has probiotics. It also has digestive enzymes that help you break down starch and fat. It even helps keep your blood sugar stable. Give me one hot dog with sauerkraut. Hey, hold the hot dog. Oats have probiotics, prebiotics. Hey, they got it all. They actually feed the good bacteria inside you. Hey, how thoughtful. Oats have tons of fiber that keep that cholesterol down and that fat gone. Now, it's time to go nuts. Almonds, walnuts, and pistachios all help keep your cravings at bay. They leave you feeling full for longer. and they've got amino acids to help burn your tummy fat. Almonds are alpha. They supercharge your metabolism and help you lose weight fast. Blueberries are terrible for white t-shirts, but awesome for your body. They're an antioxidant superfood with zero cholesterol, tons of vitamin C, and less sugar than most other fruits. These superfoods help you lose weight by giving your body the nutrients it needs to burn that fat off. In cereals, oatmeal, smoothies, raspberries just make everything taste better. They're high in fiber, which means you'll be toxin-free and bloat-free in no time. They even have less sugar in them than blueberries. The magnesium and potassium in bananas gets to work on all that salty processed food you ate last night. Yeah, I saw you. They're the ideal pre-workout food because the potassium in them helps your nerves and muscles function properly while you're lifting, running, or swimming. A little olive oil leaves you feeling full, which helps you eat less. You can just gulp down a spoonful or put it in a salad, fry up some veggies in it. You can even use it as a moisturizer. Plus, it's anti-inflammatory and has antioxidants. Olive oil also has a national day, June 1st. Now, eggs are pretty much the whole package, just don't eat too many. They're rich in protein and have unsaturated fats, that's the good kind, along with enough vitamins and minerals to build up your immune system and promote better vision. As long as you're not popping them like Skittles, they can keep you from craving more and gaining more. Lentils are packed with plant-based protein. That, and all the fiber they have, keeps you feeling full for ages. Love lentils a little too much? Head over to the National Lentil Festival in Pullman, Washington. Refined grains make you put on weight, but whole grains are ideal for a slimmer waist. That's because whole grains help you balance your daily sodium intake. Switch to brown rice, farro, whole wheat bread, whole wheat pasta. You won't regret it. Quinoa has every single essential amino acid in it, which means it's a complete source of protein. Add in fiber and other essential nutrients, and you can see why it's called the mother of all grains. NASA proposed quinoa as the ideal food for future long-duration space flights. Now, sodium causes bloating, but spinach is ready to help. It has the same amount of omega-3 as a cod liver oil capsule, and it's loaded with antioxidants. It'll keep you thin and can help improve your memory. It might just help you remember your best friend's birthday. Kale has just 30 calories per cup, so it's a great weight loss food. A cup of kale has enough vitamin A and K to meet the recommended daily requirements. That's why kale's like in every smoothie these days. Cauliflower, broccoli, and Brussels sprouts are low in calories, making them a dieter's dream. These veggies have something called phytonutrients. That sounds healthy, right? The average American ate about 6 pounds of broccoli last year. But if you want to lose weight, you're going to have to eat a whole lot more. Eating avocados every day is known to slim down that waist. It's one of the most delicious superfoods. It's nutrient-dense, it has healthy fats, it can lower your cholesterol. Not bad. Avocados just don't live in guacamole. They can go on bread, in salads. Some ultramarathoners take avocados with them on the races. It refuels them better than any power bar. Now, if you wake up feeling bloated, munch on some tomatoes. Their high water content can help. Remember, bloating comes from eating too much salt. So anything with a bunch of water in it, it's gonna make you feel much better. Citrus fruits pack a triple whammy in the fight against belly fat. The potassium in them helps fight bloating, and the antioxidants fight inflammation. Citrus fruits have a high water content, just like tomatoes. Every citrus is a little different. Grapefruits help clear up your skin. Limes give you a super concentrated blast of vitamin C. And those tiny little clementines, they're just delicious. Use plenty of herbs and spices in your food. The more flavor your cooking has, the less salt you'll put in it. And spices aren't just for flavor. Things like cinnamon, ginger, garlic, cayenne pepper, they're all super healthy.
You decide to try a new coffee brand that has a nice golden packing and proudly says 100% coffee on it. But it tastes nothing like your favorite drink. Don't blame yourself for being the worst barista on the planet. The substance you just purchased might just not be the real thing at all. It's so expensive because of how it's made. Coffee plants can't be hurried to grow. Depending on the type of coffee, it takes a coffee tree about 3 to 5 years to start bearing fruit. Coffee farming is a people-powered industry, from planting to processing. Coffee farms are often huge, so you need many workers to plant all those new trees. And it takes about 2,000 hand-picked Arabica coffee cherries to make a single roasted pound of coffee. If you want to get the best out of the variety of options, don't fall for labels saying 100% pure coffee. If it doesn't say 100% Arabica, they must have mixed in cheaper Robusta beans, which can make your coffee taste bitter. Check the roasted on date for freshness, not the best by date. When a brand offers a gazillion artificial flavors, it's a sign they're not confident in their beans' quality. A good roaster might have a few unique flavors, but not a whole buffet.
In Japan, you'll find wasabi all over the place, but chances are, if you've tried it outside of that country, you've had a fake. True wasabi doesn't come from your regular horseradish plant. It's more like a root vegetable made from the underground stem of the wasabi plant. This stem is grated to make the real wasabi paste. Growing wasabi plants isn't easy, as they only like clear, running stream beds in Japan's mountain river valleys. That's why the real thing is so pricey. Fake wasabi is usually a mix of regular European horseradish disguised as the real deal. You'll find it in squeezable tubes, little packets, or as a powder you mix with water. These products often contain just a tiny bit of the real stuff, usually 1 to 3%. It helps cut costs a lot. If you want to check if you've got real wasabi, check the texture. If it's super smooth and pasty, you're likely dealing with pureed horseradish. But if it's got a gritty feel, like it was freshly grated, it's more likely the real deal. Authentic wasabi is always served fresh because its flavor and zinginess vanish quickly once it's grated. The only Parmesan that you can really call this way gotta come from the Emilia-Romagna region in Italy, especially Parma, or a certain part of Lombardy. There are only about 300 certified dairies in that area that can make genuine Parmigiano Reggiano. And they've got to age it for at least a year to get those super important umami flavor crystals going. Some of it ages for up to 100 months or longer. The authentic Parmesan wheels are marked with a DOP stamp, Denominazione di Origine Protetta, basically saying it's the real deal from the right place. Italian Parmesan is easy to find in most stores, but there are other options that can be cheaper. That's because American-made Parmesan only needs to be aged for 10 months, and some grated blends can have up to 4% fillers, like rice flour or wood pulp cellulose. The legit Parmigiano Reggiano cheese only has 3 ingredients, and one of them is milk from cows raised in the same region. Plus, they've got some strict rules about what those cows can't eat, like fermented grain. Maple syrup fans, this one's for you. Did you know that to produce your favorite pancake topping, artisans have to tap maple trees that can grow more than 5 stories tall, extract sap, and then boil it down? It's an age-old craft, passed down through generations, from indigenous peoples to modern-day syrup makers. But many of the bottles with sticky sweet syrup inside have nothing to do with that process. Pancake syrup, or table syrup, is a mix of corn syrup, caramel coloring, and flavoring. If you see these ingredients on the label, it's a telltale sign you aren't dealing with the real maple syrup. The consistency of your purchase is another giveaway. The authentic maple syrup is runny. That's why you can pour it easily. Pancake syrup is thicker and stickier. The price can't always give away a fake in this case. It can be affordable even for the real product. Another item that often gets counterfeited is designer bags. To make sure you're buying the real thing, give that purse a good feel. If it's supposed to be leather, it better feel and smell like it. Counterfeiters often skimp on quality materials. Check out the zippers, buttons, or any metal parts. They should feel solid, not lightweight or cheap. And of course, no chipping allowed. Look closely at the seams. Sloppy or uneven stitching is a big red flag. The inner lining is another giveaway. Feel it and make sure it matches the brand's quality. Pay attention to the brand logo. Authentic ones are all about the details. The same goes for the label inside the bag. Get familiar with how it should look so you can spot any slip-ups. Check the number and placement of pockets. Each model has its own design. If it doesn't match up, something's fishy. Shady dealings with extra virgin olive oil date back to ancient Rome. Back then, tricksters would sell low-quality oil or mixes under the fancy Evo label. Nowadays, most legit extra virgin olive oil comes from Spain, Italy, or Greece. They produce it by squishing ripe olives without heating or chemicals. Good Evo might cost you around $10 for a 17-ounce bottle. Fraudsters have gone undercover amidst real producers, making it tough to spot the fakes. But you have more chances of finding the real thing if you avoid blend or light varieties on the label. Check the pressed-on date. It should be less than a year old since the oil loses its fruity vibe after a couple of years. If there's a harvest date and details like the producer's name or olive type, it's likely legit. Some high-quality oils note the free fatty acidity, FFA, level, which is a good sign. Don't automatically trust fancy packaging or high prices. Even an expensive bottle can be past its use-by date. If you like to cook, cinnamon, mint, nutmeg, sage, and other spices must always be in your kitchen cabinet. But you can't be sure you've got the real thing unless you're prepared to pay a hefty price for them. When you break it down by the pound, some of them, like vanilla and saffron, are as pricey as precious metals like silver and gold. And where there's value, there's a dark underbelly of fraud. This multi-billion-dollar industry is a playground for tricksters looking to make a quick buck. If you don't want to add something fake to your meals, the best you can do is buy the spices whole and grind them yourself. If possible, try to find a retailer that sells spices in bulk. You'll be able to see them yourself, and you won't miss the aroma of real cinnamon or oregano. If you're planning to buy a designer watch, look closely for any blunders or defects on the watch. Designer watches are usually made with high-quality standards, so things like chipped paint, scratches, or spelling errors are rare. Also, check if the clasp works and if the watch keeps accurate time. Genuine designer watches have precise, clear engraving created by skilled watchmakers. If the lettering looks messy or hard to read, chances are it's a fake. Designer watches are made with valuable metals and intricate parts, so they should feel a bit heavier than they look. If a watch feels surprisingly light, it might be fake. Real luxurious watches have unique serial numbers that should be precisely laser-etched, not sloppily printed. Make sure these numbers match the case and warranty numbers. Simply search online or contact the manufacturer's customer service to confirm you've got the real thing.
Picture this. It's a cloudy, misty morning in the middle of winter. Tom wakes up, a bit nervous for the day ahead. He's leaving on a long journey through uncharted waters. His captain says they will try to leave England and make it all the way to the Americas. He's ready and packed to leave his house when his wife reminds him to take the biscuits he had spent the night preparing. Let's zoom in on these biscuits right here. They look a bit strange, don't they? These are called ship's biscuits, and they were literally the biscuits that sailors ate during long voyages at sea. A ship's biscuit could go years without going bad. I know that sounds impossible, but the secret is in the ingredients and baking methods. When sailors departed, they didn't know how long they would go without setting foot on land again, so they needed to be ready, food-wise. Otherwise, they could perish from extreme hunger. So bakers came up with this simple biscuit. It's mostly made out of 3 ingredients: salt, flour, and a bit of water. The idea is that the dough stayed as stiff as it could. Then, bakers would put them in the oven for hours at very low temperatures. The purpose of this slow baking was to take off all the moisture in the biscuits. Even if you're not an experienced sailor, you might suspect that moisture is the enemy of food preservation. It makes stuff get moldy and attracts insects and other animals. Plus, a ship is already an extremely moist environment. So the biscuits had to go on the countercurrent of all of that. A ship's biscuit can go 6, 7, 8 years without going bad. The little holes you see on them help to get the moisture out during the cooking process. A sailor like Tom, medium-sized, would get a portion of 6 to 8 ship's biscuits per day. They were extremely nutritious and satiated a person's hunger. Now, this was a type of survival food. It wasn't meant to be super pleasurable, yummy, or even give you all the nutrients you needed. Just the basics. Now, do you have any idea what life was like in the 18th century? If you think about a city like New York, there were only about 18,000 people living there. For comparison, today the city hosts more than 8 million people. Back then, if someone had to travel from New York to Boston, there wouldn't be any of the convenience stores there were along the way. I mean, there weren't even roads as we know them now. So, people needed to make food provisions. And this is where portable soup came in handy. If you imagined a boiling pot of meat and veggies, I'm sorry to inform you, you are wrong. Portable soup is hard and condensed. It looks like this. Portable soup is a type of solidified broth, a very, very condensed substance made essentially of meat. Think about it. It's convenient, it's light, it doesn't take up much space, but it's extremely hard to make. The best meat to make portable soup is one with a lot of collagen, like beef shank, and the secret is slow cooking. You can't lose sight of it though, because if it boils up, you ruin the whole thing. While cooking the meat, it will release its taste in the water in the pot, and after a few hours, it's safe to take the beef out. The remaining water will be rich in nutrients and fats, and once you reduce that down for about 18 to 24 hours, you'll get a gelatine-like nutritional substance. Once this cools down, it turns into a tablet of sorts. It's pretty amazing to witness the entire transformation process, but hey, this dark tablet is really satiable. And to eat it, you just needed to find some hot water and put the meat tablet inside of it. It would release all the condensed nutrients in it, giving you a warm, hearty meal. Here's a trick question for you. Do you know why hamburgers are called hamburgers if they are not made out of ham? Apparently, it has to do with the city they were first invented in, the city of Hamburg in Germany. But it wasn't what we are used to today. I mean, they didn't even use ketchup. Well, at least not the tomato ketchup we use now. But did you know that other types of ketchup have existed throughout history? As weird as it may sound, back in the 18th century, people ate mushroom ketchup. For your information, if you look up ketchup in some dictionaries, it is by definition a sauce made out of mushrooms. It has nothing to do with tomatoes. I wonder where people got that idea from. Anyways, to make it you can use any type of mushrooms. Even shiitake if you're feeling fancy. The idea is to smash them, cook them, and add a bunch of spices to the mix. I'm talking clove, nutmeg, ginger, pepper, and whatever else your palate wishes for. And in case you're wondering what our ancestors ate it with, I have one word for you: meat. They would pour mushroom ketchup over a nice piece of steak, for example, like a gravy sauce, or something like it. Now, if this just left your mouth full of water, I have good news. You can still find mushroom ketchup in Great Britain. It's just North America that kind of forgot it. Neat, huh? And what did people eat back in the day when they were feeling unwell? Today, we have a concept of food I particularly love: comfort food, which is something to eat when you are feeling down and sad. But then, on the days you're feeling sick, what do you eat? I immediately think of a warm soup or something nutritious and light. Our forefathers drank something called posset. Now, posset could be described as an eggnog with some sweets added into it. Its recipe can be traced down to as early as the 15th century. The drink was considered such a reliable remedy that Shakespeare even used it as a poison in Macbeth. Here's another quick pop quiz for you. Why do we say the proof is in the pudding? This famous expression simply means that you'll only know the true value of something once you experience it for yourself. The expression started to be used back in the 1600s, but there's an important thing to note here. In Britain, pudding is not the sweet dessert known by many in America. Rather, it's a savory dish, much like a pie. I guess it's safe to say that the British are good at turning almost anything into pie. From apple pie to pumpkin pie, chicken pot pie, and so on. Now, in the 18th century, they had something called beefsteak pie. This was an incredibly popular dish back then, but somewhere along the way we lost the habit of making it. Sure, you can find steak and kidney pudding today, but it's got all sorts of stuff in it, such as potatoes, carrots, and thick gravy. Up until the 19th century, people ate the stripped-down version of this dish, which was basically made out of richly flavored meat. They say breakfast is the most important meal of the day. If you're in the US, you might eat some avocado on toast or a rich bowl of cereal. If you're in Vietnam, you might enjoy a warm bowl of broth soup or rice. But if you were eating breakfast in 18th century England, or even the United States, you would get something like this. This is the old school version of what we know as bacon and eggs. Except that back then, it was called collops and eggs. According to the traditional Hannah Glass recipe, straight from the most famous cookbooks of back then, the egg wasn't fried or boiled, it was poached, and the bacon was probably not as processed as we eat them today. A little toast was added on the side, and there you had it. The perfect start for a long day.
From the iconic golden fries to a broken ice cream machine, here are 10 fast food secrets that the fast food industry doesn't really want you to know. Chicken nuggets. Those golden crispy bites you can get from fast food chains. They're even on the menu of school lunches. What if I tell you that they aren't actually made entirely out of chicken? Researchers took chicken nugget samples from unnamed fast food chains and analyzed them. They said that one sample, for instance, contained only 40% and another 50% of meat. The rest? Well, you're eating mouthfuls of things like fat, connective tissue, and bone spicules. Many fast food companies grind the meat with that stuff. They make mechanically formed orbs of chicken parts. Why? Perhaps it's because this method is cheaper and more profitable. Millions of restaurants worldwide have chicken nuggets on their menu. So, scientifically, it's not fair to say all nuggets are made this way, but a lot of studies imply so. The more the meat is processed, the more you lose the good stuff, like vitamin B6 and B12. The bitter truth is that companies add stuff, such as sodium, to the mixed paste. Sodium is added to get a better flavor. It's one of the ingredients that makes nuggets so yummy. Our bodies need sodium, but not too much of it. Unfortunately, most junk food contains more than our bodies can handle. So it might be a safe option to avoid eating these sorts of foods frequently. Chains dip their nuggets into tempura batter and fry them in hydrogenated oil. That's also not a green light regarding health, but this is how they catch the golden tint. They put additional stuff in nuggets. What about grilled chicken? In recent years, we've seen brands highlighting grilled chicken as a healthier option. Research has been done about grilled chicken too. And the same approach is applied here. Take chicken samples from iconic fast food companies and send those to labs for analysis. The results show that companies are misleading people by advertising these products by labeling them as healthy, natural, and 100% chicken breast. In reality, a couple of things are added to the meat to make it tender and juicy. Plus, these additives make it easier to cook the meat, freeze and transport it, and reheat it later without losing too much moisture. The drawback of all these additives is that they affect the nutritional value of the chicken breast. These ingredients aren't the healthiest for us. We should especially watch out for 3 things. The first one is again sodium. Fast food samples had 7 to 10 times more sodium than home-cooked chicken breast. Imagine you have a cheeseburger, but you say no to yourself and try to pick a less harmful menu item. Yet, some chicken sandwiches have the same amount or even more sodium than a cheeseburger with medium fries. The second thing you need to watch out for is phosphate additives. These additives allow the protein to conjoin more water. This means the white meat in the sandwich will appear juicier to you. Any word you see in the ingredients section that contains phos is a phosphate additive, so it's best to avoid them. The last thing you should avoid is sugars and starches, not just in grilled chicken, but pretty much in all fast food products. Oh, that's hard to digest, I admit. Cornstarch, sugar, malt, they come with grilled chicken breast. Buns and even some fries have sugar too. Everywhere I look, it's sugar. You see, home-cooked chicken has 0 grams of carbs, but the study samples had added sugar and up to 10% of the calories in the chicken breast comes from there. So what's the moral of this story? If you're a health-conscious diner, you should maybe go for other options. There are secret recipes from companies like KFC and Coca-Cola. No company wants to share the ingredients that make their food irresistible, but with a little research, you can decipher many things. You want to know the secret of McDonald's fries? It's written on their website. They add beef flavoring to the frying oil. This may sound weird, but apparently, that's a known practice amongst chefs and restaurants. Duck fat has also been used as a flavor, for example, in high-end restaurants. I'm a fries lover, so I added another fact about fries. Sadly, they're even saltier than you think. Experts suggest that a grown-up should consume at most 2,300 milligrams of sodium daily. Guess the McD's large fries sodium number. At least 400 milligrams. Classic fries from Burger King have 732 milligrams, and Five Guys take the level even higher with 962 milligrams of sodium. Next time, maybe you can ask workers to go easy on the salt as a solution. Picture this. You're in a hurry, but your tummy says, "Feed me, or I'll affect your mood and make life miserable for you." For a quick snack, you enter a fast food chain restaurant. You order your favorite burger. It looks and smells as if it's just been taken from the grill and served. Nope. They have different types of grills designed for this that can cook meat super quickly. Sorry to bear the bad news, but those perfect grill marks on your burger aren't real tools. The factory adds them. If you want to know how clean an eatery is, look under the ice chute of the soda machine in places where you can get your own drink. There you go, Inspector. You solved the case. Various studies say that if such machines aren't cleaned correctly, dirty, contaminated ice can lead to some health problems. There could be mold or bacteria there. Ew! The process of cleaning ice machines isn't easy. The same thing applies to ice cream machines too. Rumor has it that those ice cream machines aren't out of order. Employers just cannot find time to clean them properly. Now, what's the best time to get a good and fresh meal? Here are 2 opinions, and they both have solid reasonings. The first team recommends avoiding ordering grilled food in chains from 7 to after midnight. Many former employees say that sometimes they had taquitos or hot dogs prepared at around 4 or 5 a.m., but kept waiting to serve them till around midnight. That's not healthy. The other team says you should order between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. or between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. to get the freshest meal. Since it's going to be around lunch and dinner time, there'll be circulation and you can get decent food. Fast food companies have marketing, design, and psychological tricks to lure you in and make you order. Yet, they don't want you to stay inside for too long. If you were dining in mood lighting, you know under dim lamps and candlelight, you would take your time to eat. As the name suggests, you should be fast like your food in chain restaurants. They have fluorescents and they're in full light. Similarly, the floors and tables have reflective surfaces that make food look nice and bright. Plus, music is usually fast and loud. It's done to prevent you from spending hours there. Yet, they want you to take advantage of the first 20 minutes after your purchase. The faster you eat, the longer it will take you to feel full. Scientists say it takes about 20 minutes for our stomachs to inform our brain, "Okay, now I'm full." It's a good idea to eat in a clean area, but most of these companies are using cleaning products that have super strong chemicals. Assume that the staff cleaned the place at the end of their shift. They wiped down the soda machine and grill surface, and then you showed up early the next day. You may get some of that chemical residue on your food compared to other customers visiting the place later in the day. The vegan patty may not be 100% vegan. I'm talking about the grill, not the meat itself. In most of the chains, vegan burgers are cooked on the same grill as meat burgers. Do you have fast food chain secrets you want to share? Tell them to fellow Brightsiders in the comments.
Now, up for a guessing game? It's going to be pretty simple. I'll be giving you the name of some food, and you must guess what it is. This might seem easy, but the farther you get, the tougher the questions are. So let's start. The first food on our list is Cheetos. So what are they? If your answer was chips, sorry, but you're wrong. The right answer is puffs, and it's explained by the method they use to make Cheetos. They're made of corn, and they have their signature shape thanks to an extruder that shapes them. The main difference between chips and puffs is that chips are fried and puffs, like Cheetos, can be processed in several ways. For example, they can be baked. Next, we have a dish called Welsh Rabbit. All I can say now is that it's super yummy. Can you guess what the Welsh Rabbit is? The name is pretty misleading, I know that, but in reality, a Welsh Rabbit has nothing to do with rabbit. It's actually an 18th century recipe with hot melted cheese generously poured over toast. Told you it's delish. Now, lion's head. Yep, that's a dish, and we already know that the name is quite misleading. So, any ideas? This is pretty simple. A dish called a lion head is just a meatball. It's a traditional Chinese dish, and it has many alterations. Hey, if you can add up some broccoli on your plate, it might even look like a mane, and the meatball can resemble the head. But you have to have quite a poetic mind for that. Now let's imagine you're having dinner at a posh restaurant, and you see sweetbreads on the menu. You don't want to seem ignorant and ask the waiter about the dish, so you have to make a decision yourself. Can you guess what it is, and would you grab it? To grab or not to grab? That is the question. Sure thing, tastes differ, but if you expect to have a cake or a fancy muffin when you order sweetbreads, you're going to be terribly disappointed. Thing is, sweetbreads are the thymus gland of animals. Good news, you're not very likely to get into such a situation in a restaurant, as sweetbreads aren't common today. Now another thing that may sound fancy, but is not fancy at all, prairie oysters. I believe you've already guessed these are not oysters. Any ideas about what it really is? Okie dokie, here's the recipe for prairie oysters. All you need is a raw egg, some Worcestershire sauce, and hot sauce. And if you want to spice it up a little bit, just add some vinegar and a bit of tomato juice. Now, there's another version which uses the part that turns a bull into a steer, and I'll leave it right there. Alright, this name is truly poetic. You need to use your imagination to guess what it is. So, ants climbing a tree. What kind of dish could it be? No ants are involved here. Actually, it looks very much like pasta bolognese, but it's a Chinese dish, Szechuan to be more precise. It's made of ground meat that represents ants and bean noodles that represent trees. It's pretty hot as there is chili paste. There's no info about what exactly chili paste represents, but I guess it might represent a hot summer day. Next, we have a dish called Bubble and Squeak. This one seems pretty simple though. Just think about it. What can squeak when we cook it? So, some foods do squeak when we put them over the heat. Bubble and Squeak is a hash, and you can cook it with different leftover veggies you've got in your fridge. They say it's the cabbage that gives that signature squealing sound, but it's not the only ingredient for sure. It's commonly made with potatoes, onions, and yeah, cabbage. But you can play with the recipe of that. Now, what about a dish called Hen of the Woods? Any ideas? Nope, these are not chicken wings. It has nothing to do with hens or chicks, actually. It's a mushroom, and it has plenty of names, too. You can call it a ram's head, a sheep's head, a dancing mushroom, and even a monkey's bench. These mushrooms can be consumed fried, but traditionally they're considered to be medicinal mushrooms. They're usually about the size of a potato, but sometimes they can grow up to 100 pounds. So big, in fact, that there's not much room left. Okay, sorry. Congrats, you've made it through 50% of the questions. Next up is the parson's nose. Yeah, it's tough, so I'll give you some hints here. Pick one of the options. It's a dish made of veggies, it's a dish made of chicken, it's a cake. Time's up. Hen of the Woods may not be made of chicken, but parson's nose definitely has some chicken in it. Technically, it's a chicken's behind. Look right here, this little triangular thing. Some chefs don't like leaving this part on the chicken before roasting it, but others believe it's quite good. Thing is, the flavor of that part is pretty rich because of the oils the birds produce. Now, it's getting even harder. So, what do you think cat's tongues are? This one is pretty popular around the world. I mean, who doesn't like cookies? Right. Cat's tongues are the cookies that are popular in France, the Netherlands, and even the Philippines. There are different techniques of how to achieve this specific shape. Some chefs use pastry bags, and others prefer molds. The cookies are delicate and sweet, and sometimes have a buttercream filling. They can also be served with ice cream and even dipped in chocolate. Ooh, yumbo! Egg hoppers is the next misleading name we have on the list. So, what's your guess? Egg hoppers may sound a bit like grasshoppers, but sure thing, this dish cannot jump. This dish looks very similar to an average French crepe, but the ingredients are pretty different. Instead of wheat flour, they use rice flour, and regular milk is replaced with coconut milk. Not hard to guess, it's a dish that you can find in some parts of Southeast Asia and in India. Now we know that egg hoppers don't relate to grasshoppers, but what about a grasshopper pie? Now, even though bugs can be cooked in some countries and they can be part of a national cuisine, a grasshopper pie is 100% bug-free. It's made with graham cracker crumbs, creme de menthe, creme de cacao, and some heavy cream, so it has an exotic name because of its color, and it's delicious. Next, we have a dish with quite a particular name. It's called the priest fainted. I'm going to help you a little bit with this one. It's made with veggies, so all you need to do is guess what veggie you need to cook this dish. The main ingredient here is an eggplant. Also, there should be some tomatoes and a lot of olive oil. The flavor of this dish is super intense. Eskimo ice cream. Does this sound sweet to you? Well, sorry to break it to you, but you won't find this one in an ice cream parlor. Yeah, it has some berries in it, but it also has some reindeer fat, seal oil, and even some ground fish. They say the texture is nice and pretty creamy, but it still doesn't sound like a dessert. Next up, egg cream. You might have already guessed that it has neither eggs nor cream. What could it be? First off, it's a drink. It's made of some milk, fizzy water, and any syrup to your liking. Typically, they use chocolate or vanilla syrup. It's mostly a fountain drink. Some entrepreneurs tried to bottle it, but to keep it as refreshing as it should be, the ingredients should be mixed right before you drink it. The last but not the least, the final thing to be guessed here is Bombay duck. So, what do you think it is? For some unknown reason, it's fish. Lizard fish, to be more specific. In Sri Lanka, people dry it first and then consume it. Otherwise, they temper it, fry it, or can even cook it as a curry. Well, that's it for today. Share the most deceptively named foods you know in the comments.
Many people try to store different types of food in the fridge, just in case. It seems like the smartest decision to extend a product's lifespan. But it's not that simple. For some foods, the fridge can be harmful. For example, sauces. If the package doesn't say otherwise, it's better to keep them outside the fridge. You can put them in a cupboard that is far from your oven to protect sauces from temperature changes. The worst enemy of coffee beans is moisture. Special oil in coffee beans is responsible for that pleasant and cozy coffee smell. When you place your coffee in the fridge, condensation changes its entire cell structure and makes all the magic disappear. But if your goal is to get off caffeine, maybe it is a good idea to store your beans in the cold. Rumor has it that honey is an immortal food. You can store it almost forever, but make sure to do it properly. Keep honey in a cold and dark place, but don't put it in your fridge. Otherwise, it may crystallize and lose some of its major beneficial properties. Putting tomatoes into the fridge seems pretty harmless, but it's not the best idea. It will make tomatoes lose their delicious flavor because cold air slows down the natural ripening process. Thus, the thin membranes inside of the tomatoes get less juicy. And you don't want your salad to be watery and tasteless, do you? The best way to store tomatoes is in a well-ventilated box or basket at room temperature. If you want to keep sliced bananas from getting brown, use citrus juice. Just drizzle orange or lemon juice over the cut bananas. Unfortunately, this trick only works for a few hours. The perfect way to store your chocolate is inside your stomach. Just kidding. Keep it away from the fridge and store it in a cool, dark place. This way you don't only protect your dessert from your sweet-tooth roommates, but also keep its attractive appearance. It's not a good idea to put your chocolate in the fridge, because the temperature difference will create some condensed water on the surface of the chocolate bar. And keeping it away from the fridge is safer for your teeth. Chocolate tends to harden at low temperatures, which makes each bite more difficult. Don't keep your hummus at room temperature. It doesn't matter whether it's homemade or pasteurized. In both cases, it's not safe. If the hummus is traditional and doesn't contain any preservatives, its lifespan is up to 1 week. As for unopened supermarket hummus, you can store it in your fridge for about 3 months and for 1 week once you've opened it. Let's say you've just baked the perfect cookies. It's time to put them in a jar or container. Unfortunately, the cookies will eventually lose that precious out-of-the-oven feel and keep getting harder and harder as the days go by. But if you add a slice of bread to that same container, the cookies will keep their soft texture for much longer. That's because cookies will absorb moisture from the bread. People usually wrap cheese in plastic packages, but this solution is far from perfect. Plastic wrap attracts too much moisture, which creates an ecosystem for mold to grow and prosper. If you want to protect your cheese from this bitter scenario, sprinkle it with vinegar. But don't use more than a few drops. Otherwise, it'll ruin the original taste of your cheese. After that step, wrap your cheese tightly in wax paper and put it in the fridge. There are no special rules about eggs. It's safe to store them both inside and outside the fridge, as long as their expiration date is fine. It's important to make sure the temperature is stable and consistent. If your choice is to put eggs in the fridge, don't keep them on the side shelf. To protect them from temperature fluctuations, put the eggs deeper in the fridge. Also, experts don't recommend removing the eggs from their package. These containers are actually meant to extend the lifespan of the eggs. Yes, the temperature is not equal all over your fridge. The shelves on the door are the warmest area, for example. And the closer the shelf is to the freezer, the lower the temperature gets. So, if you want to create perfect food distribution inside your fridge, don't skip the specific storage recommendations that are mentioned on some packages. If you store a loaf of bread in the supermarket package, get ready to see some mold in a couple of days. It's better to keep your bread in a firmly closed box with a little bit of salt. This tip will protect it from the mold. Also, avoid keeping bread in the fridge because cold air will make it stale very quickly. But when you need to save bread for a long time, you can put it in the freezer. This way, it'll stay fresh for up to 6 months. If you want to keep sliced cucumbers from drying out, put them in an airtight container and pour fresh water in it. Don't store them in the fridge for more than a week. As for the whole cucumbers, keep in mind that they rot in the cold air way faster than at room temperature. If you want to keep them fresh for as long as possible, store them outside the fridge. Avocado is a tricky fruit with tricky storage rules. If your avocado is hard and not fully ripe yet, keep it away from the fridge because cold air will slow down the ripening process. Bananas emit high levels of ethylene, which helps avocados ripen faster. So, if you want to accelerate the process, put it in a bag with 1 or several bananas. At the same time, if your avocado is soft and ripe, storing it in the fridge will keep it from going bad. Some people prefer wrapping cut avocado in plastic wrap together with a slice of onion. This tip helps the fruit to stay fresh longer. Another way is to cover it with olive oil. Keep in mind that cut avocado can be stored in the fridge for no longer than 3 days. Keep your onions and garlic away from the fridge. Low temperatures will cause mold way faster. If you want to keep them fresh for a long time, store them in a cool, dry place. For example, in the kitchen cupboard. And if you don't mind some country house style in your kitchen, tie the onions to one another and keep them hanging. Also, avoid storing oranges and other citrus fruits in the fridge. Unfortunately, low temperatures make these fruits less tasty and less beneficial for your health. You can store them in a fruit bowl, on a shelf, or kitchen table. Don't worry, this won't speed up their rotting. Just like many other vegetables, eggplants don't like low temperatures. In the fridge, they get soft and lose their good qualities way faster. Keep these veggies away from direct sunlight in some dry space at room temperature. If you've sliced an apple, but you don't want to eat it right away, here's a tip. Put a rubber band around the slices to hold them together. It'll keep the apple from turning brown. This fruit will stay fresh and crispy for as long as a whole month when stored in a moisture-resistant bag in a fridge. It's advised to avoid washing apples before storing them, as it might cause spoilage. Never put olive oil inside your fridge. If you've made this mistake before, you've probably noticed those weird white pieces inside the oil. Don't worry, it's not toxic. In fact, low temperatures in the fridge cause water condensation, which looks like unpleasant impurities. It's better to keep your olive oil at room temperature and far from direct sunlight. Watermelons and other melons, kept at room temperature, contain more beneficial nutrients and antioxidants compared to those kept in the fridge. But once you cut your watermelon, it's better to store it in the fridge. Use plastic wrap to cover the cut side tightly and replace it each time you cut your watermelon. Also, you can cut your melon or watermelon in smaller slices and store them in an airtight container in your fridge for up to 1 week. Freezing ginger will allow you to keep it fresh for 2 to 9 months and maintain its quality. You can also grate it in advance so you can take 1 spoonful at a time. This will save you time, especially on those busy days when you need to prepare something fast.
See you Saturday! You hang up and realize you have 2 days before the main family get-together of the year. Your shopping list is ready, so you head to the largest supermarket in town. You follow the list to the letter, grabbing everything you need as fast as possible. The cart is full of fruit, vegetables, dairy, meat, fish, bread. Well done you! 1 hour later, you get back home and proudly hand in the shopping bags to your grandma. She takes out the items one by one and frowns more and more at each of them. Turns out the fish and meat you picked aren't fresh at all, and those bananas and greens won't make it till Saturday either. Grandma says she'll save the day. You make a good snack to not go shopping hungry. Now you won't buy the stuff you don't need. Then you get in the car together to do it all over again. Smart shopping means cruising the perimeter of the store where you can find all the fresh and healthy stuff. Fruits, vegetables, dairy, meat, and fish. They normally reserve the center aisles for junk food. So, you decide to skip them altogether. Your first stop is the produce section. Grandma says you should spend the most time here. And it's a good thing you arrived before lunch. Most grocers get fresh produce when they just open, or later in the evening before they close. You reach out for packaged tomatoes, but Gran stops you. Prepackaged fruit and vegetables are usually more expensive. Plus, they don't let you check each item. A good ripe tomato can weigh double as much as an unripe one. It should have smooth and firm skin and smell like a tomato. No! Don't put that poor bruised thing into your cart. Bruises on produce are a perfect breeding ground for bacteria. Try to find firm cucumbers that have no blemishes or soft spots. The best ones are dark green. If you see yellow spots, it means the thing is overly ripe and will likely taste odd. The same goes for peppers. They must be of intense color with no stains. Now turn it upside down and count the bumps. 4 bumps means fewer seeds and better taste. 2 to 3 bumps mean bitter taste. The stem of a fresh pepper is always green, firm, and crispy. Take these potatoes with sprouts out of your cart right now. Go for the firm and smooth ones, without the wrinkled skin, soft dark spots, or cuts. Pick only green lettuce with no holes or brown edges. The brighter its shade of green, the better. Moving on to fruits and berries. Gran explains that a ripe watermelon will come with a dry brown stem. This one with a dark yellow must have been resting on the ground long enough to get sweet. The same's true for melons. The ones with a yellowish bark is sweeter, as it had received enough sunlight by the time they picked it. Check out the stem of the bunch before taking those bananas home. The stem must be green to light yellow and not turning brown. Only take single bananas if you want to eat them right away. They survive longer in clusters. Never judge a mango by its color. Instead, gently squeeze it. A ripe mango will give in a bit, and it will also have a fruity aroma at the stem end. Smaller fruit is normally sweeter. But that rule doesn't work for strawberries. Different sorts come in different sizes, so bigger ones can be yummy too. Their ripening ends once they've been picked up, so go for bright red berries with fresh green leaves. Those would look dry and wilt if they had picked the berries a long time ago. That lemon won't give you much juice. It's pale, which means it's an older one. This firm, unblemished one with smooth skin will be way better. It also feels heavier, and that's a good sign as well. You're shopping for a big event, but otherwise, you'd never buy too much produce at a time. If it's fresh and organic, it won't naturally last too long, and always opt for fruits and veggies that are in season. They'll be less expensive and of better quality. Next up, honey. This one looks odd to you as it has those crystals at the bottom of the jar, but Grandma explains it's a sign of freshness. It's normal for honey to crystallize when the temperature drops. It's also a good sign it looks opaque. It means it's more natural and healthy and not pasteurized. You check the list and realize you still need some bread. You already know the best option is the whole grain kind. You pick it up and study the label. Made with whole grains won't do. This one that says whole wheat flour is good. The fewer ingredients, the better. If you can't pronounce the name of the additive, you don't want it in your bread. It shouldn't have artificial flavors, colors, or preservatives. You lightly press on the bread you just chose. Bingo! It goes back to its original shape, which means it's high quality. If you see your finger mark on it, it could have been previously frozen, or the baking process went wrong. You move towards the canned food section, and Gran jumps in your way. She's sure canned foods are bad for your health, as they contain a huge amount of sodium. You convince her to at least study the labels. You should always pick canned foods that don't have too much salt or sugar in them. The ones preserved in water or their own juice are the healthiest, as they have fewer artificial ingredients in them. You find some tuna packed in olive oil. The package is perfectly closed, so it's all good. You know you should never take a rusty can. It can be dangerous. Okay, looks like you've got everything you need, except for meat and dairy. You know you should always grab those last. They can spoil without a fridge if shopping gets too long. You make some room in your shopping cart to protect your fruit from raw meat juice, just in case. Red meat should be of dark color. Purple, red, and brown are all good. Pork should be the shade of light blushing pink. It should smell good. It can't be pungent in any way. If you see many fibers, it must be some tough meat with a strong flavor. Beef tenderloin won't have any grains because it's super tender. White flecks and streaks of fat throughout the muscle are another sign it's juicy and tender. If you aren't planning to cook meat straight away, pick the one with the latest best before date. You can still eat it safely after that date, but it tastes better before it. Dirty marks within the packaging are a red flag. Someone must have handled it with dirty hands. If the chicken you're about to buy has skin, it should be paler than the flesh, not yellow or light brown. The edges mustn't look dry. The cuts must be smooth and uniformly sized. If it's not butchered well, there might be small joints and bones in your lunch. Any chicken that has been in the container for more than 2 days should better stay on the shelf and not in your cart. Gran picks up a fish and stares it in the eye. She explains a good fish will have protruding ones with shiny black pupils. The skin of fresh fish should be silky, not sticky or dull. Squeeze the fillet. If there's a trace of your finger mark on it, it's no good. The final stop of the day, dairy products. You should reach for the back of the shelf to find the ones with the most distant expiration date. The same rule works for frozen foods, packaged foods, and eggs. Stockers locate the newer ones behind the older items. Grandma recommends choosing pasteurized milk. No raw products will land in your cart today. When milk goes through pasteurization, they heat it up to fight off disease-causing bacteria. It doesn't take away the nutritional value of the product, so no worries about that. When picking the best yogurt, pay attention to the label. The more words you see on it, the better. 3 basic ingredients are enough to make it work. The rest should be preservatives and sugar you don't need. Live and active cultures is something you want to see on the ingredients list. Don't forget to get some cheese. Not this one though. The soft kinds like ricotta, cream cheese, goat cheese, or shredded cheese shouldn't have any mold on them. It can penetrate inside easily. Some mold is fine on hard cheeses. You can carefully cut the area around it and still eat it. Yay! You're done with shopping. Time to go home and cook.
You know how it's easy to gain extra fat when you consume greasy foods packed with empty calories or high in sugar? But if you know the right foods to eat, they'll make you feel full and help you burn fat much faster. And you'll get some extra space to enjoy cheat meals from time to time. Spoiler, you can even eat a certain type of popcorn. But first things first. Medium-sized bell pepper has about 30 calories. You can hollow them out, stuff them with ground turkey or ground beef and couscous, and just put them in the oven. Another option is to slice them and throw those sticks into a stir-fry. Now, eggs are high in protein, and that protein is so filling you probably won't be able to eat too much of it. It's the digesting protein kind that will put your metabolism to work because of the thermic effects of food. That's the amount of energy your body needs to absorb, digest, and metabolize all the foods you consume. The thermic effects of food will take around 10% of the total caloric intake. So, if you eat 2,000 calories in a day, your body will burn about 200 of them just while eating food, and powering all the other processes connected with it. If you make an omelet and add cheese and whole milk with sugar, that's different. But eggs themselves are different since they're one of the best protein sources you can get. Salmon is next on the menu. If possible, try to look for wild-caught instead of farm-raised salmon. When salmon is raised on farms, they start mooing like cows. Nah. It mostly contains more calories and fat with a higher ratio of omega-6s. And the majority of people already consume too much of it. You can see it yourself if you place farm-raised and wild-caught salmon next to each other. The farm-raised kind has thicker white lines that represent streaks of fat. Salmon is generally very filling and high in protein. Now, celery is 95% water, which makes it one of the lowest calorie foods you'll find. It's quite filling and will provide your body with the nutrients it needs, such as calcium, potassium, and antioxidants. Antioxidants are elements that slow down the process of damaging cells in your body. It produces free radicals and unstable molecules as a reaction to your outer surroundings. They're guilty of cell damage, so your job is to balance your diet to keep your body safer. You can try spicing up that celery meal with some low-calorie dip such as salsa. An average container of salsa has approximately 130 calories. Hot sauce is also great. It doesn't contain calories and goes pretty well with foods high in protein, such as tuna, eggs, or chicken. Vegetables like celery and peppers will do fine too. Chilies contain an active ingredient called capsaicin. It's what makes the chili hot. This ingredient can speed up your metabolism, which helps you burn more calories in a shorter period. Spinach is definitely one of the lowest calorie veggies. Most of the spinach is water anyway, and 1 cup has only 7 calories. Most of them come from insoluble fiber. That means you'll be full, but at the same time, you won't stuff yourself with a bunch of unnecessary calories. And you'll get pretty cool nutrients like potassium, magnesium, and vitamins. It's easy to prepare it since it cooks in a very short time. You can also eat it raw or add it to your smoothies. A couple of other green veggies that will help you maintain a healthy weight are broccoli and kale. Broccoli is high in fiber, which means it'll keep you full for a longer time. You can steam it or eat it raw and serve it as a great side dish. It has 31 calories per cup, and kale has 33. Now, believe it or not, humans have most likely been eating kale for the past, 3,000 years. Writings from early Rome mention leafy green plants that likely included kale, too. It's packed with vitamins A, C, and K, and grows best in winter and fall in cooler weather, so store it in a cool place. Kale is also great for smoothies if you like the taste of it when it's raw. Another option is to spray some kale leaves with a bit of olive oil and bake them. Now, any cauliflower fans out there? Yup, it's not something you'll probably crave, but it has only 27 calories per cup, so it's a good choice when you're running out of dietary ideas. If you're not a fan of raw vegetables, you can always steam it and flavor it with spices and herbs or a little bit of lemon zest. You could also bake it. Cauliflower is great when you need an alternative for high-carb side dishes like rice or potatoes. You can slice cauliflower into small pieces and cook it on a frying pan or boil it and make mashed cauliflower. You can add a bit of butter to it because it's a low-calorie food that leaves you some space to cheat. Cauliflower is a great choice when you want to make a low-carb pizza too. Really, it's good. How about adding more soup to your diet? It's at least 90% water, and the rest depends on the ingredients you prefer. You can make it out of healthy, nutritious vegetables and combine it with foods high in protein like chicken, fish, beef, mushroom, tomato soup. If you make a creamy soup, you'll be full, so you'll automatically want to eat less and won't be able to eat that much heavier food. Zucchini definitely deserves to be on this list. It's low in calories, and you can also prepare it in so many ways. Zucchini pasta, noodles, baked zucchini fries, the list can go on. It can be an excellent replacement for pasta dishes, especially if you have a spiralizer that will help you make it nice and thin. The most flavorful ones are usually small to medium-sized. Although most people consider it a vegetable, zucchini comes from seeds and grows on the flowering part of the plant. That means it's technically a fruit. Avocado is a nutrient-dense food you can easily add to whichever recipe. It's full of good fats, almost 80% of its calories come from fat, and it's a fruit, not a vegetable. The darker its skin, the riper the avocado. And if you want to speed up the ripening process, just put your avocados in a paper bag with ripe bananas. The ethylene gas bananas produce will make your avocado ready to eat faster. You can fill avocado halves with salsa or sprinkle slices of it with some sea salt. Chicken breast is one of the leanest sources of protein you can have on your diet. It goes perfectly with some of the vegetables from the list when you want a light, low-calorie meal that will help your muscles recover and provide your body with protein. Healthy snacks are real. Nuts are one good example. They're a great source of healthy fats and protein, which means they'll help you stay full longer. Take a handful of pistachios, almonds, hazelnuts, or macadamia nuts instead of chips, French fries, and other junk food. To make them last longer, take nuts in shells. If you're craving some light and nutritious, but at the same time refreshing snack, take a cup of frozen grapes. It will satisfy your sweet tooth without adding too many points to your calorie intake. If you're not a fan of grapes, try frozen bananas. If you like to munch popcorn while watching movies or your favorite TV show, don't worry, it's also on the list of low-calorie foods. This snack will make you gain extra body fat and weight if you eat too much of it, of course, especially if you choose a package with a lot of added butter. But if you take a regular corn package you can prepare at home without too much oil and butter, you're good. Popcorn contains a lot of fiber, which means it's hard for you to eat too much of it. And it's definitely easier to overeat stuff like potato chips than healthier snacks such as popcorn. Now, a single serving container of Greek-style or some other low-fat yogurt is another option for you. It's an easy, ready-to-go snack you can combine with frozen or fresh fruit, ground flaxseed, or even reduced-fat granola. Watermelon contains more than 90% water. Foods with a higher percentage of water are in most cases low in calories and quite filling, so you probably won't eat too much of it. 1 cup of watermelon has less than 50 calories. Bonus, it'll help you stay hydrated during hot summer days. Speaking of foods that are mostly water, here's one you can eat in big amounts and add to your salads: cucumber. Vitamin A, beta-carotene, fiber, you get it all. And all you need is to slice the cucumber and sprinkle it with some salt. And here comes the best part. Even if you slip up from time to time and treat yourself to something you really like, it shouldn't do you much bad as long as you stick to a healthy basic diet. Got that? Seedless fruits are a commercial success, as no one likes to have to deal with pesky seeds when they're eating. But how does a plant grow if it doesn't have seeds? I'm guessing they have some help. Most seedless fruits that you see in the supermarket aren't natural. Scientists grow them in the lab. They've developed them from plants whose fruits normally contain a large number of big seeds. The scientists start by taking a trimming from a branch and then mix it with a bunch of nutrients. Then they put it into the soil where a new plant grows, minus the seeds. Watermelons are a different story, though. Some watermelons are naturally seedless, and we call these tetraploids. When a tetraploid watermelon is crossed with a regular seeded one, it produces a new seedless watermelon. The sky is blue as our air throws blue light from the sun across the sky, which then reaches our eyes. This is because the air is made up of many tiny molecules, mostly nitrogen. When the sunlight hits the nitrogen molecules, it turns into blue light. This blue light gets scattered across the air and bounces around in the sky. That makes the sky look blue to our eyes. Only female bees can sting, as males don't have the right anatomy. They can only sting once because the female honeybee's stinger is made up of 2 barbed lancets. Once the stinger goes into something, it can't be pulled out. The stinger is attached to the bee's digestive tract, which means that when the bee tries to remove the stinger, its entire digestive system, muscles, and nerves are pulled out. That's why it takes guts to sting, literally. It seems it would be much easier if planes flew in a straight line. In fact, the circumference of the Earth is much greater at the equator than near the poles. This means that curving toward the poles is a shorter distance than just flying in a straight line. It takes 365 and a quarter days for the Earth to orbit the Sun. Because our calendar years only have 365 days, we add an extra day every 4 years to make up for the difference. This is why we have leap years every 4 years, as they include this extra day. Starfish are able to regrow arms if they detach from the central body. They can even take it one step further and grow an entirely new body from an arm. They can store nutrients they need in the arm until they're able to grow a new mouth. They have enough cells that can turn themselves into different organs and tissue when a limb is severed. Now, wouldn't that be handy? When your phone gets down to 1%, it seems to stay on for longer than expected. This is because your battery percentage is just an estimate, and the phone doesn't actually know how much charge is left. Cactuses, or cacti, can survive in the desert with basically no water thanks to 3 main features. First, they have long roots that go deep inside the soil so they can absorb water. Second, they have spines instead of leaves so that they don't lose water that would evaporate off leaves. Finally, their stems are covered in a thick, waxy layer that keeps water trapped inside them. Still, it's better if you don't hug a cactus. They can get prickly sometimes. Bluetooth works without wires, as it uses radio waves to send information like your radio, TV, and cell phone. Like radio, each device operates on one of many frequency channels. If 2 devices want to link, they pick a channel randomly. If it's already taken, they switch to one of the others. This is why they don't interfere with each other. They're only short-range transmitters though, which explains why your devices won't carry your signals too far. The police lights are red and blue, so that drivers can easily see them at any time of day. Red lights are the easiest to spot during the day, and blue lights are the clearest at night. Humans naturally float in the Dead Sea because of the concentration of salt in the water there is very high. That makes the water super dense. It's like molecules that are closely compacted, so nothing can break through. Humans are less dense, physically. That's why we stay on the surface of the water. If you put a cucumber near a cat, it's likely to jump as if it's watching the scariest movie. This is probably down to the cucumber looking a bit like a snake. It turns on an inherent flight reflex that makes the cat bolt. And please just take my word for it and don't scare your kitty with the fruit we all think is a vegetable. Now, this may come as a shock to some, but each dog gives off a unique smell from behind, which passes on vital information to other dogs. They can determine whether they have met each other before just by the smell of their bums. This is why they do it every time they see a fellow pup. It's like an ID card for dogs. We say, hang up the phone, although all we do is click a button, because old phones used to have 2 parts, a base and a receiver. To end a call, people used to hang up the receiver onto the base. It's a similar story why we say dial a number. Old phones used to have a rotating dial, which you'd have to turn to call a number. Wow, suddenly I feel old. School buses are yellow, as it was found to be the most visible color. It reduces the risks of accidents and also helps passengers catch the bus. It's also this color, as black lettering on yellow proved to be the easiest to read in semi-darkness and from long distances. People in the UK drive on the left side of the road, not the right. This dates back to the 18th century London, when cars could drive on any side of the road. Traffic jams and collisions started happening a lot, so a law was passed saying that all traffic going over London Bridge must keep to the left. This rule then spread to all parts of the UK. Get equipped for any season with brand new Brightside merch. Click the link and grab your print. Around 85% of people are right-handed. The left side of our brain is the one responsible for planning and execution. Each side of the brain controls actions on the opposite sides of the body, so the left side of your brain controls the right side of your body. When you use tools or write, you use the left side of your brain. Is that clear? I'm confused. Birds don't get electrocuted sitting on a power line because they have both feet on the wire and no circuit is created. The electricity travels along the wire instead of through the bird. This only works if the amount of electricity flowing through the wire stays the same. If the voltage in the wire is changing, it's a different story. But birds are so small they can't really store much electrical charge. This means that even if electricity did flow through them, the charge would be way too small to shock them, which also explains why birds, when shopping, prefer to charge than pay cash. The Pacific and the Atlantic Oceans have an invisible barrier that stops them from mixing. The water in them has different densities, chemical makeup, and salt levels. You can see that just by looking at them, as they're each a completely different color. The image on the Save button on your Word document represents a floppy disk. They were a popular way of storing and saving data in the 90s, but now they're mostly forgotten. Boy, I'm really feeling old. Roosters crow in the morning as they have their own internal alarm clock that helps them anticipate sunrise. They need to know when the sun will rise so they can get a head start on their daily chase for food and defend their territory. Roosters also like to doodle on paper, which is where cock-a-doodle-doo came from. Just kidding. Your dog might be eating grass for a reason. It needs roughage like grass in its diet so it can get fiber, which helps digestion. If pups don't have enough, they might not be able to digest food properly. Tractors have big back wheels so that they can pull any weight behind them without tipping. The big wheels also have a large surface area, which helps to stop grass and soil below from being compacted. Dogs don't just wag their tails when they're happy. They use their tails to communicate and express how they're feeling to other animals. It shows a range of emotions, from nervousness to excitement. And the grass is green as it produces a bright pigment called chlorophyll. Chlorophyll absorbs blue light and red light, but reflects green light, hence the color of your lawn. So you're watching your favorite cooking show when suddenly the star chef adds a pinch of salt to some jam that's supposed to go into a dessert. You pick up the phone to call and complain, but right then the chef explains. It turns out that adding salt to fruit is a common thing in different cuisines across the world. Like in Mexico, they like to spice up mango and citrus fruits with salt and chili powder. You can try mango with a shrimp taste in the Philippines and salted watermelon in the southern states. So, how does it work? Well, let's say you're eating a raw mango sprinkled with salt. With the first bite, you notice the salty flavor, and the sweet fruity taste is then slightly delayed. It feels as juicy and amazing as ever. It's most likely because salt affects the sweet taste receptor for sugar, and then really magic happens on a molecular level. One study even found that we have more sugar detectors in our taste cells than scientists previously thought. One of those detectors must direct sugar to a sweet taste cell when it gets in contact with salt. You can try and put salt on any fruit you like, but the effect will be different. Salt can make sweeter fruits like cherries and strawberries even sweeter and balance the flavor of grapefruit, pineapple, and watermelon. Just take a ripe fruit and slice it the regular way and sprinkle the pieces with salt. Large, flaked sea salt might taste more intense, plus it looks more beautiful. After 10 minutes, your gourmet dessert will be ready. So, you need to chop up a heap of iceberg lettuce, but that tough core in the middle doesn't want to leave. Just hold the lettuce head in both hands with the core end down and slam it against a cutting board or some other solid surface, not your brother. Now, you should be able to pull the core right out of the bottom and slice the rest of the lettuce without a problem. The next time you take butter out of the fridge and struggle to spread it because, it's hard as a rock, reach for your grater. With its help, you'll easily flake off tiny pieces of butter that will melt instantly on a warm toast. You can also spread them much easier on cold bread without putting your sandwich in the microwave or waiting for a while to soften the butter. Professional bakers approve of this tip and have been using it for a long time. When you're frying something, you first heat the pan and then put the food on it, right? Well, this logic won't work if you want to make your bacon crispy. On a hot pan, the meat will cook before the fat can melt out of it. Your bacon will be too fatty and rubbery. So you gotta lay the strips on a cold pan and then turn on medium-low heat. The fat will render out of the meat, and the final result will be super yummy and crispy. Have you ever tried boiling pasta in a frying pan? I know it sounds a bit weird, but it can actually help you save a lot of time, water, and energy. Instead of filling a huge pot with water and waiting for it to boil, put your pasta in a frying pan and cover it with cold water and add some salt to it. Your pasta will be cooking while the water is getting to the boiling point, so it'll be ready much faster than normal. And the water that's left in the pan will make an excellent base for a sauce because it's filled with starch. Mix it with pesto, tomato sauce, and garlic butter. It tastes like it's straight out of a gourmet restaurant. Now, the secret to cooking the most delicious and fluffy mashed potatoes is to dry them before you mash them. After boiling, you can either put them in a pot and leave them over low heat on the stovetop, or keep them in a baking sheet in a low oven. Then add melted butter that will coat the starch in the potatoes, and only then slowly add milk. Now your mashed potatoes will have the best possible structure and flavor. If you've shed enough tears over onions when trying to slice them, this one is a must-try for you. Peel the onions, cut them in half, and leave them in a fridge in a bowl of iced water for half an hour before you start cooking. The reason behind your tears is the sulfur that onions take from the soil while growing up. When you damage its cells, the acids contact the enzymes that start a whole bunch of reactions and release a chemical that makes your eyes water. Freezing the onion can weaken that chemical. To minimize it even more, only use a sharp knife to slice onions. This way, you'll do less damage to its cells. It's much easier to peel an avocado if you freeze it first. Just put it in the fridge as it is, give it some time, and then take it out and hold it under warm running water. Now you can peel it easily after you make a couple of crisscross incisions. The best way to keep herbs fresh and juicy is to store them like flowers. If you don't have the right size vase or vase, take a mason jar or a water glass and fill it with an inch of water. Now put the herbs inside as you would do to your roses. For parsley and cilantro, cover the jar with a plastic bag and store the bouquet in the fridge. Basil loves sunlight, so you better leave it uncovered on the counter. If you've made too much sauce or have some leftovers in a can that doesn't seem to be enough for anything, you can save it from the trash can. Pour the sauce into an ice cube tray and keep it in the freezer. Now, if you need to spice up a meal, you can always add a couple of sauce cubes to it. Plus, as a bonus, which is redundant, the sauce will last longer this way than it would in the fridge. Do your meatballs always turn out to be perfectly the same shape and size? Then skip this one. But if you're like me, just use an ice cream scoop to get the right amount of your minced meat mix. Try saying that 5 times. The balls will be the ideal shape and your fingers won't get sticky. The easiest and probably the most beautiful way to slice a mango is to turn it into a hedgehog. Wash the mango under running water. Don't squeeze it while doing it. Now put it straight up on a cutting board and cut it into 3 pieces from the top downwards. Just leave that flat pit in the middle piece. There isn't much you can do with it anyway. Now your mango will have 2 cute cheeks. I mean, its fattest parts. Next, make crosswise and lengthwise cut in the mango cheeks. Leave some even distance between the incisions and don't go all the way through the skin. Now press on the back side of the mango until the flesh pokes out. Does it look like something to you? Yep, a hedgehog. Hence the name of this slicing method. The final step will be to slice off the mango cubes into a bowl. Then eat. Now this one has all the potential to become your new breakfast favorite. You can cook an omelet in a mug. Take a large microwave-safe mug and coat the inside of it with olive oil or spray it with cooking spray. Add 2 eggs and 1 tablespoon of milk and mix them with a fork. Now add salt and pepper and any cheese, veggies, and herbs you like. Put it in the microwave on high for 30 seconds. Take it out, stir it with a fork, and then put it back for another 30 seconds. And voila! Your breakfast is served. Oh, be sure to use another mug for your coffee. Otherwise, you get eggs in your coffee, and nobody has a recipe for that.
A beverage as black as ink, useful against numerous health conditions. It's made of water and the fruit from a bush called bunu. You must have guessed. It's a description of coffee. This is how coffee was described by a German physician who had a 10-year trip to the Near East back in the 16th century. Today, you don't have to venture into the unknown to get a cup of precious liquid. You can easily make it at home or visit the closest coffee shop. As of 2023, in the US alone, there are over 72,000 coffee shops. Imagine the whole world. When you think of coffee, what's the first country that comes to your mind? Italy? Maybe France? But here's the kicker. Actually, Finland is the coffeeest country in the world. Just picture it. An adult Finn consumes up to 27.5 pounds of coffee per year, while an American only consumes about 11 pounds. Norway proudly takes second place, and Denmark closes the top 3. Italy and France aren't even in the top 10. And by the way, each day, people on our planet drink approximately 1.6 billion cups of coffee. If you're planning to hit some longevity records, coffee may come in handy. There's been research conducted by Harvard Health Publishing stating that those who drink 3 to 4 cups of coffee per day are more likely to have a longer lifespan. Sounds cool, but it's probably not the best option. One of the world's most famous supercentenarians, Jeanne Calment, acknowledged that she would drink coffee with milk for breakfast. And she lived an incredibly long life of 122 years. Not only do people prove that coffee helps with longevity, but cats can also prove it. This is Cream Puff from Texas. It's the cat that lived for 38 years. Jake Perry, Cream Puff's owner, shared some details about his pet's diet. Cream Puff would typically eat dry cat food, eggs, turkey bacon. Alright, nothing special here. But the cat was a big fan of coffee too. Cream Puff preferred coffee with cream. Now, here's a question for you. What color is your coffee mug? Thing is, it matters a lot what you drink from. There are certain colors, for example, lead-based glaze that can release toxic substances in your drink. Mugs glazed with red and orange are most likely to contain lead. So, if you want to play it safe, opt for mugs made of glass, ceramic, or stainless steel. Also, mugs made of plastic or aluminum aren't safe either, as they may release unwanted substances, just like glazed mugs. But the color matters for psychological reasons too. There's been an experiment concerning coffee perception based on the mug color. So, it turns out that if we drink coffee from a white mug, it may seem less sweet than if we drink it from a blue or transparent one. Coffee even played an important role in major sports events. Back in 1932, Brazilian athletes couldn't afford a trip to LA to participate in the Olympic Games. However, a solution was found. The authorities loaded the athletes onto a ship full of coffee. That coffee was sold on the way, so it helped finance their trip. Coffee is also the key to a happy family life, or at least it used to be. In the 15th century, in Mesopotamia, coffee was pretty important when it came to marriage. Men would choose their future wives based on how well they could make coffee. Luckily, we have coffee machines for that today, so we choose partners based on their personalities. And in Constantinople, a wife could file for divorce in case her hubby did not provide her with enough coffee. According to industry standards, you need around 56 coffee beans to make a single shot of coffee. Beethoven, yes, I'm talking about one of the main hitmakers of all time, would count 60 beans precisely to brew his morning coffee. I guess it was more of a ritual than a particular recipe. Hey, do you have any rituals for your morning, Joe? Another hitmaker, Johann Sebastian Bach, even dedicated a cantata to coffee, which he called Coffee Cantata. Pretty straightforward, huh? The cantata tells about coffee dependence. Even though black coffee is supposedly the most common type out there, pretty much everyone tried cappuccino at least once. By the way, it got its name because of the final color the drink has. It's a soft brownish shade, very much similar to the color of the capuchin robe. Plus, the robe has a hood, and the word hood translates to Italian as cappuccio. Now the name finally makes sense. Those who don't like to spend time brewing coffee often opt for the instant variety. Let's say happy birthday to instant coffee. It's soon to turn 116 years old. It was invented in 1907, and up until the 1970s, many consumers would criticize it for having an inferior taste. However, in the 1970s, the technology changed, and the manufacturers claimed it tasted almost like freshly brewed coffee. Also, instant coffee created another popular thing: coffee vending machines. The first prototype was invented back in 1947, and they've been with us ever since the 1950s. There are also some products you don't really want to combine coffee with. Number 1. Meat. The logic is simple. Coffee can absorb zinc in the body. Therefore, it's not the best choice to have coffee after grabbing something that contains zinc. I'm talking about red meat, oysters, and beans. Number 2. Fried food. Such dishes tend to contain a lot of so-called bad fats. And once you combine them with caffeine, this mix increases the cholesterol levels in your body. Number 3 may come as a surprise, but still, coffee and milk aren't the best match. Coffee doesn't let the calcium absorb, so technically, you just don't get many nutrients from the milk. Japan seems like the perfect place for those who love coffee. I mean, do you know any other place where you can literally bathe in coffee? Me neither. So this hot springs spa and water amusement park near Tokyo got famous for its extraordinary hot tubs. There are 26 baths in total, and they're filled with coffee, green tea, and many other drinks. Only fresh ingredients are used, and the baths get refilled every day. So to make a coffee tub, they brew coffee beans with water from natural hot springs. By the way, the price is pretty reasonable. An adult ticket costs about $36. If you tried to make a coffee tub yourself, you'd probably spend more. Time to debunk another myth. Decaf coffee does have caffeine. A middle-sized decaf drink has about 7 milligrams of caffeine, while regular coffee has about 70. Yep, 10 times less, but it's enough to disrupt your sleep. As for classic coffee, remember that caffeine has a 6-hour half-life, so it takes about 12 hours to fully eliminate it from your body. Coffee is a no-go both before you go to sleep and right after you wake up. Cortisol, the stress hormone, is not only responsible for stress, but for sleep cycles too. It spikes between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m., so a cup of coffee only adds to anxiety in the morning. Grab it when the cortisol is at its lowest. It also spikes between noon and 1 p.m., and between 5:30 and 6:30 p.m. No coffee at this time. Many people believe coffee is not the healthiest drink, opting for good quality water or other beverages. Still, if you just can't say no to your guilty pleasure, try buying a thermocup and brewing coffee at home. You'll save money and nature, since the disposable coffee cups aren't recyclable, and it takes at least 20 years for them to decompose. A pop-in in a coffee shop may be your daily ritual, but have you ever counted how much you spend on your morning habit? Millennials spend over $2,000 a year on coffee, investing sometimes more than they do in their retirement.
Nothing better than salty, crispy potato chips. You may not find anything successful at the bottom of a potato chip bag, but a person holding it might. People who choose this snack are often highly ambitious CEOs, successful in both family life and business. They're often pretty competitive, success-driven, and impatient, which is why it's not unusual when they get frustrated even at small inconveniences. Jam, dips, meats, spreads, cheese, crackers are so versatile, just like people who eat them most. They're also thoughtful, a bit shy, contemplative, and like to be involved in many things and projects at once. Their biggest concern is all of these projects take time and attention, which is why they'll have to choose amongst them. They value their free private time and use it well. If you want to hear some of their best ideas, allow them to think and don't interrupt. That's when they're most creative. People into crackers don't base their decision on emotions, more on logic, but are still quite sensitive. Hello, tortilla chips people. Psychologists say you're perfectionists who always want to do their best for both yourself and the community. They also claim that you're more likely to be humanitarians who like to do things for others and tend to be excellent planners since you're very disciplined and organized. You also like having things under control. When you were a student, A just wasn't enough, so you argued with your teachers for the A+. Pretzels could sound a little boring, but this snack actually stands for creativity. People who like munching on pretzels tend to be extroverts who love to have fun and enjoy social activities. They're spontaneous and energetic. This type of people doesn't like routine, which is why they'll always try to bring a note of freshness and creativity into each day. They'll always seek novelty, prefer to be in bigger groups, and feel the best when they're all dressed up. One of the downsides of their personality is that, since they're so social, they also tend to overcommit. Cheese curls people have a deep sense of what's right or wrong, and usually have orange fingers, which is a big giveaway. They don't treat people based on status, but on merit. One word can describe them best: integrity. They have proper manners. They don't lick their orange fingers in front of you. And tend to pay attention to details whatever they do. Cheese curl eaters also keep moral high ground with their work, family, and partners. If your first association with junk food is a bag of popcorn, you're probably quite a versatile person. You like munching popcorn while binge-eating series, movies, driving your car, or just talking and hanging out with your friends. Caramel, chocolate, butter, it doesn't matter what they're covered in. What matters is you're holding popcorns in your hand. It's a flexible snack, just like you are. It's not just popcorn, but the way you eat it too. Those who love eating slowly tend to put their needs before others and are more stubborn. Those who eat their popcorn fast probably take handfuls at a time. They're less selfish and generally are extroverts who like sharing foods with others. Those who love ice cream often have that sense of wonder and desire to explore. Researchers classify ice cream lovers into more personality types. For example, if you like your ice cream with a cone, you're a positive and optimistic person. If you choose a sugar cone, it means you're funny, edgy, and a potential performer. Waffle cone lovers are more traditional and tend to be generous hosts that will welcome you to their parties. People who will rather go for a cup are realists, rational, and analytical thinkers. They're hardworking, responsible, family-oriented, and do their duties on time. Prefer your ice cream in the form of a sandwich? It means you both have strong extrovert and introvert tendencies and tend to be impulsive, idealistic, artistic, and a little bit eccentric. If you like your ice cream to be out of the carton, you're a practical and resourceful person, often an introvert. Ice cream with a straw? Those who prefer it in the milkshake form are fearless, love to take impulsive risks, and simply young at heart. As for flavors, individuals into strawberry are introverted and quite devoted. Vanilla is for risk-takers who express their emotions quite intensely. Oh, and they're also impulsive. The chocolate flavor is for charming, flirtatious, and gullible people who tend to be dramatic. Mint chocolate chip is something ambitious and confident people love, while the coffee flavor is for spontaneous enthusiasts who love adventures but are also a bit dramatic. With a cherry on top, you like surprises and those little moments of joy. Meat snacks like Slim Jims or pork rinds are for very loyal people, whether it's to their family, friends, or just a sport team they support. These people are also the life of the party. They're over-trusting, which brings them plenty of emotional turmoil when things they trust in fall apart. More hot sauce. Not good if the lips are burning. If this is your motto, you may be one of those specific individuals that like to live on the edge. When we eat spicy foods, we set off pain receptors, which is uncomfortable for some, while others find it alluring. So, spicy food lovers are thrill and adrenaline seekers who are always into searching for sensations and some new, exciting things. Sour gummy worms might be sour, but it also brings the sweetness factor because of the sugar. A person who picks them as a favorite snack probably often and easily gets overwhelmed, but is also capable to bring balance back in their life when they lose it. And experts say, if you prefer sour food, you are a person with high standards. If you're more into that regular sweetened gelatin in the shape of gummy bears, chances are you're an extrovert and a quite optimistic person who loves being surrounded by other positive people that see life the way you do. Your friends would probably describe you as a loyal and warm individual full of good vibes. Peanut butter cups, yummy! Means you're ambitious, independent, know what you really want, and aren't afraid to go after that. People in your closer circles are lucky to have you because you're a very loyal friend who's always there to help. Ooh, dark chocolate. Some like to keep it healthy, even when it comes to things like occasional snacks. Dark chocolate lovers tend to be mature realists that like to think things through. They prefer some smaller, intimate gatherings rather than attending big, raucous parties. You may be more up to caramel chews, which means for you, life is pretty much all about learning new things. You're that intellectual in the group, always ready to discuss things and find out more about the world we live in. As you're always thirsty for knowledge, you naturally go towards people you believe you can learn a lot from, and also value friends with similar interests. Yeah, you're a little reserved and distant when it comes to bigger groups of people, but definitely not afraid to show your real face when surrounded by close friends. People who will choose healthy fruit and vegetable salads rather than other snacks, first of all, congrats, how did you do that? They're more likely to be conscientious and have an open view and personality. These people are always willing to do new things, as well as try some new experiences. Extroverts are more likely to go for junk food, while those who are less social and avoid eating fast food in the late hours pay more attention to making their habits healthier, with snacks too. It's not what you eat, but the way you eat it too. The picky eater probably won't make an order at a restaurant without additional questions or requests to make some changes with the meals, like add or omit some ingredients. This type of people prefers to stay safe in their comfort zone. They're afraid of taking the extra step that could potentially reveal things they never got to know about themselves. That way, they'll only apply for or take jobs they know how to do pretty well. They won't take risks and are afraid of a failure. Those who carefully arrange their food on the plates are people that like to keep everything clean, organized, and be in total control of whatever they do. No mess in their homes. If you're having dinner with your friend and you realize they like to mix all the food on their plate, it means you're hanging out with an outgoing and friendly person who's not afraid of taking on various responsibilities at work. They love their job, but also know how to use their free time and spend it with their loved ones. There's one who eats only one thing at a time, too. This person is focused on details and likes to think everything through before taking action. They're mostly pretty successful and praised for their good work. These people can see all those small details everyone else misses, which is fine as long as they're patient enough with others who don't see it or keep up with the same strategy while doing things. That's it for today. So hey, if you pacified your curiosity, then give the video a like and share it with your friends. Or if you want more, just click on these videos and stay on the bright side.